All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 7:01. We are going to begin by calling the roll. Maya is going to call the roll for us today, so I'll go ahead and let her start with that.
Hi, everyone. I'll be calling the roll, and I'll start with Senator Anadura. If you could just
Here.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Bamu,
Here.
Senator Desai,
Here.
Senator Dutta,
Here.
Senator Everett,
Here.
Senator Fiore,
Here.
Senator Guffey, Senator Guffey. Okay, Senator Hassios,
Here.
Senator Jebin,
Here.
and then me, I am here. Senator Maladakar,
Here.
Senator Nimla.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Senator Pasapula,
Here.
thank you. Speaker Powell, Senator Rampani,
I am here.
Senator Andrew Richards,
Here.
okay, Senator Robinson,
Here.
thank you. Senator Suber, Senator Suber, okay. Senator Syed, Senator Syed, okay, thank you. Senator Wilkerson,
Here.
thank you. And Senator Wilkins,
Here.
thank you. And we're all set with roll and we pass.
Awesome. We're going to move straight into petitions and messages. We'll start from any messages from the student body president. Lamar, do you have anything for us?
Hey everybody, I'm sorry, I kind of forgot the agenda for a minute. I was gonna take a big bite of my sandwich. I'm glad y'all caught me before I did. That would have been embarrassing. Good evening, everybody. I mean, there's been a lot happening, so I think I'd rather open myself up to any questions you all may have. But I'll leave it at the Board of Trustees is having a special call meeting tomorrow, as I'm sure many of you are aware. What exactly will be on that agenda for tomorrow is still unclear. And I will be joining that call virtually. So I'm looking forward to that. We still will have our regular meeting in July. In terms of executive branch, departments and my team have been hard at work on a lot of policy initiatives, as well as getting ready and preparing for our budget, which you all will be voting on as a full Senate tonight. I do think, as with this being the first time that we've did this, I am extremely proud of the work that executive branch put into creating the budget, and that finance committee putting into vetting the budget last week. I do think the questions that you all asked thoroughly prepared my team for what the future may hold, as far as making sure we execute the budget properly and appropriately. I also think that we're looking into having some type of university-wide town hall with the chancellor. He's asked for that, and so we're going to look at what the feasibility of that looks like in the coming weeks ahead. But other than that, I'll open myself up to any questions you all may have about the past couple of weeks and everything going on.
Thank you for that. If you have any questions for Lamar, please raise your hand. All right, seeing no questions for Lamar, we'll move down to messages from the vice president. Colin, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for being here. I know it's been interesting at UNC lately, but a lot of things happening from my office. Of course, like a lot of the routine meetings I'm having, but I guess the largest thing that we've been working on right now is our external appointments process. We are currently doing our first round of interviews to place that. We have a good amount of applicants for positions. We're looking to fill around 40 spots. So that's a little bit, it's close to about a third of our spots, which is really good for summer recruitment. And of course, once that process starts to ramp up, I'm just doing some changes to things, and we'll keep up with Chair Pasapoulos so that we can make sure that that review goes smoothly when it comes around in the winter, I guess is the season that February falls in. Beyond that, recently we've started a lot of the internal meetings with student government in different bodies. So we started meeting with the campus presidents council last week, which is a body that the executive branch is working with, bringing in different leadership from student orgs to make sure everyone's represented in administrative spaces. And last week, Lamar and myself also had a meeting along with some other student leaders on campus with the Chancellor and Vice Chancellor Amy Johnson to just talk about some general concerns right now to get student feedback of how we're feeling. I'm sure you all have heard a lot about that. It was an interesting meeting, is what I'll say. We are looking for more, hoping for more, and I'm thinking that's what the future will bring. So a lot of those meetings happening, just gearing up for a lot of different things in the fall. Really busy on my office on that end. And beyond that, like I said, finishing recruitment for external appointments this week. We wrap up our interviews tomorrow night. Only other thing, I want to thank everyone once again, and also give a shout out to everyone that facilitated the Pride Town Hall last Friday. I think went really great. I think we had a lot of really good conversations, and I appreciate everyone bringing me into those spaces to allow me to moderate. I had a really good time, and I think you all gave some really great insights, and I think a lot of good conversation came out of it, and hopefully a lot of good action steps. So shout out to everyone that worked on that. So Chair Pasapula and a lot of you all that put in that hard work. Thank you for that. That was incredible. That's all for my updates, but I want to make sure if you all have any questions, comments, concerns about anything my office is doing, that the space is open right now.
Great. If anyone has any questions for Colin, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, we're gonna move into messages from the treasurer, Ashna.
Hi, everyone. So super brief updates, actually. So we just finished an audit of the computer science program enrichment fee. I sent over a report just with our conclusions of it. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to go ahead and see that. I also connected with them with their undergraduate senator. So that would be Senator Richards. Just because they're interested in getting a little bit more connected with student government and talking about their new advisory board for the fall regarding the fee. Other than that, regarding the campus security fee, I will be meeting with GPSG, the graduate side of things, alongside Ethan, who is the director of student wellness and safety, tomorrow night, I think around 6 p.m. And that's just to come up with a little bit more details about how the campus security fee should be spent in, of course, our opinion, and writing a report on that to present to Nate Knuffman in July, who is the person he's the vice chancellor of finance and operations of the university. Other than that, just working through a little bit details with deadlines on spending regarding allocations, and also just a note, any spending bills that we pass today, spending most likely will not be available until about halfway through July, but of course I'll keep everybody updated on that. So this is just kind of a proactive approach on that. So, I mean, I'm open to any questions at this point.
If there are any questions for Ashna, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, we're going to move into messages from the undergraduate student government director of state and external affairs. Is she here? Did anyone in EBO get a message from her?
I don't think Nina is here tonight, but I can talk a little bit about what she's been doing if you all would like me to.
That would be great.
Yeah, so Nina's been doing a lot of work with the town of Chapel Hill, just working on some bodies that they're trying to establish to make sure that there's better community relations between students and Chapel Hill Carborough at large, especially as we come out of a pandemic, I'll say, even though we're not out of a pandemic. Just understanding how we can be better community members to a community where people live permanently and students don't. I think that's really been the center of her work, is remembering that while students make up a lot of this population, we are not permanent members. So she's been working with the mayor and some of the office staff in the mayor's office to make sure that we have that running dialogue, and also, of course, keeping up with some of the legislative affairs happening within the state in general. And once again, trying to make sure that we have the student perspective really well voiced. I think that's about as much as I can provide as context. If anyone has any questions, if they'll let me know, I can make sure that Nina sees that to answer it, though.
All right, awesome. If we can move into messages from the Attorney General.
All right, hello. Sorry, my camera is off. I'm getting a haircut on July 10th, and after that date, you will see my face again. but I want to say I'm glad to be here. I've been able to attend a few of the committee meetings, and I'm coming to a better understanding of exactly what you guys do and what you committees do. I just want to say before I get started with the agenda, feel free to reach out to me or Brandon or Katie if there's anything that you think the honor system can help with. We're more than willing to see what we can do to help out our fellows in student government. So with that, I'll go into what we've been doing. The large bulk of what AG staff has been focusing on, as always, has been processing cases. As usual, during the summer, we have a limited staff, so summer is always a bit hectic. I'm proud to say that the majority of cases that we currently have are in the stage where a hearing date has been set and confirmed, and students and faculty are working with our members in order to prepare for the hearing. Brandon can talk a little bit more about what honor court scheduling looks like and what the hearing load looks like. On top of processing cases and assisting students as they go through this process, we've done a few maintenance items. First and foremost, we've updated the communication that we send to students to be more clear and precise throughout the entire process. We've included mental health resources on these communications as well. And we've also edited our procedures a little bit to make sure that if students are waiting or one part of the process has been delayed for them, that they're in constant contact with a member from my staff. Some other maintenance stuff, we're moving AG staff, all of our files to continuing to be virtual in preparation for hopefully becoming paperless in the fall semester and further semesters. We've begun preparing for recruitment in the fall, including a reassessment of where leadership currently stands and members on leadership. Proud to say we do have one new chief of staff who's going to be excellent in their role in terms of making sure that our councils and other members have a support system, as well as we're helping to develop them and mentor them throughout this entire process. And yeah, we do have a million other things that are in the works currently, but if you guys have any other questions about what I'm doing, feel free to let me know.
Great, thank you, Q. If there's any questions for Q, please raise your hand. All right, are there any messages from the undergraduate honor court chair? Brandon, are you here?
Yeah, I am. I really don't have too much more beyond what Q said, but from the court side, we're hearing maybe 6 to 8 cases a week. It started off a little slow in the beginning of the summer and is definitely picking up. And I anticipate it staying that busy throughout the beginning of the fall semester. Like you said, the summer is definitely our busiest month or our busiest couple months. We have 2 new vice chairs who you all will be considering in a little bit. For them, it's just for having the vice chairs on the court is really important, because in the hearing, all hearings need a vice chair. And right now we only have 2, excluding Preeti and Emily. So having a few extra staff will help increase our workload a little bit and help to decrease the burden on the current vice chairs. And yeah, a lot of our initiatives, we work together, myself, Q and Katie together as like one big honor system. So I just echo all of the other statements that he's made as well.
Great, thank you for that. If there are any questions for Brandon, please raise your hand. All right, we're going to move to papers addressed to the Senate. I have not received any. So we can move straight into reports of the officers of the Senate. We're going to start with the Ethics Committee Chair. Chair Fiore, do you have anything?
Yeah, I do. Hi, everybody. So most of this is directed to senators. I'm going to drop a link. This is for the survey that I sent out a while ago. I actually got really great responses on this. About 16 people have already done this, and that's awesome. I will remind you that it is required, and like allegedly, you cannot vote if you don't fill this out. I'm not going to do that because that's kind of crazy, but I would really, really, really like you to complete this soon. If you are one of the 6 people that hasn't completed it, just send it out. It'll be brief, 10 minutes max. I'd also like to remind everybody of the safe zone trainings and the like other required trainings that we have. I put something in the teams for this. It's just something to keep in mind. You just have to complete it over the course of your tenure, which is over the next year. So you have plenty of time to do this. This is just if you want to be proactive. Big shout out to Senator Desai, who has like already sent me documentation for some of this stuff, which is wild and beyond my wildest expectations. That's really it. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chair Fiore? All right, and we're going to move to a message from the Oversight and Advocacy Committee Chair. Chair Pasquilla, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have a few things. So as mentioned earlier, we had our first town hall of the year focused on issues impacting the LGBTQ plus community on campus. And so that town hall recording is already up on YouTube. So if you want the link, just let me know. It's also in my Senate Instagram account bio. I'm currently working on creating the meeting minutes, taking a lot longer than expected, but hopefully I can get those out by the end of the week so y'all can see what we discussed. Also, as July approaches, I am still just finalizing the list for the members or positions that I will be reviewing for stipend review. And so hopefully by the first week of July, I can send out those timesheets so those members can start tracking their hours. And then also as July approaches, Oversight and Advocacy is going to start working on planning events for the fall to increase our connections between students and Senate, especially as we move back on campus. Also, the gender-based violence working group, that is still going on. I will be presenting a bill tonight regarding codifying the procedure for handling reports of sexual gender-based violence on within student government. But also, hopefully, the first or second week of July, we'll actually start our research. So if you're interested in joining that research group, please let me know. But that is everything I have for today.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chair Pasquilla? All right, seeing none, we're going to move to our R&J Committee Chair. Chair Robinson, do you have anything?
Thank you so much, Elena. I want to echo what a few people have said. The Pride Town Hall was a great event. Thank you so much, Chair Pasquilla, for setting that up, and to Vice President Smith for moderating. I think that was a very meaningful conversation. I enjoyed attending. The Rules and Judiciary Committee, we met and we heard from Preeti Dongara and Emily Madro, Honor Court Vice Chair nominees. We're very impressed by both of them and look forward to hearing from them again this evening and voting upon their nomination. I would also like to specifically thank Q, Brandon, and Katie. Y'all have truly walked the walk as far as increasing communication with us, being at meetings, and I can't thank y'all enough for that. And then lastly, I just want to thank President Richards, the executive branch team, and everyone who is fighting to hold the Board of Trustees accountable, specifically in the Nicole Hannah-Jones situation. I can't think of anything more meaningful. And so I really appreciate your work there as well. And looking forward to a great meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chair Robinson? All right, seeing none, we're going to move to the Finance Committee Chair's report. Chris?
Yeah, hi everyone. I don't really have a lot. I know we're just doing a lot of budget work, which is taking a lot of time, but hopefully we'll get through that tonight. I think the biggest thing, I just want to remind all the branches, part of the code is you can apply for funding in the next cycles, even if we have to make cuts tonight, which we will because we're a little bit over, so you can still reapply for funding. I please encourage you to do that in the fall subsequent cycle. Other than that, I'm meeting with Austin tomorrow about the treasurer's test, and I'm really happy that we're kind of getting this experience right now for finance nights because we're also ramping that up pretty soon at the start of the semester. So other than that, that's pretty much it. And thank you all for all the work y'all are doing.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chair Everett? All right, moving on to the Speaker Pro Tempore's report. Maya?
Yes, hi everyone. I hope everyone's having a good summer. Just a few updates on my end. I've been working on staff applications, and staff applications are tentatively due by Friday, July 23rd. Next week, I'll be working on some assets for staff applications and running it by O&A committee. And so if you would like to be a part of like helping, pub and get recruitment up with staff applications, that'll be really helpful. Feel free to Slack me or text me or email me, whichever way works for you. Not Slack, but Microsoft Teams me. So yeah, but that's really what I've been working on with staff applications and trying to get out more momentum around hiring more staff members. Thank you. Yes, so I will be forming Senator Richards. I will be making that link actually this week. And so I can drop it in Teams by the end of the week so that we can begin to roll it out next week while we are pubbing. So thank you for making that point.
Chair Pascagoula.
Yeah, this is just about the staff applications. I know somebody sent us a DM on our Instagram asking how freshmen can get involved. So if someone who's involved with the staff application process could like respond to them and tell them that those applications will be coming out soon, that'd be awesome.
No problem, definitely. Thank you for that. And that's all that I have on my end for staff applications.
Great. Are there any more questions for Maya? All right, I will move straight into my report. So not too much. I attended all the committee meetings. They're going really well. I'm really proud of our chairs. They're doing great jobs. I really see the work that you guys are putting in, and I really appreciate that. I don't think we've ever seen committee chairs hit the ground running as fast as you all have, so I'm really thankful. Otherwise, as everyone else said, I attended the Queer Town Hall as a panelist. That went really great. I think there was a lot of great discussion, and I'm thankful for ONA putting that on. I was also unable to attend the Campus and Community Advisory Committee, but Sam offered to go as a proxy. He reported that it went well. There were several discussions on fall planning concerning vaccines, masks, and other topics. He did give me a full report, but I know that he would love to answer any questions if you have any about that. I've had a lot of interested first years email me personally, which is really awesome. I've actually gotten to meet with a couple of them, and hopefully I'm going to get in touch with Maya soon to get that staff app out and get us some staff in here. I've also had a couple of other meetings with senators, other branches, all of that. It's been keeping me busy, so I'm thankful. Other than that, just for senators, please keep an eye out on your emails for the treasurer's test and the student code test that will be coming soon. Other than that, I think that's all. I just really want to extend my thanks to all of you for the hard work you're doing this summer. This is a lot of effort that I haven't seen before, and I'm just so grateful that we have a Senate that is putting the time in and really cares and is passionate. So yeah, I will answer any questions you guys have to the best of my ability. All right, Senator Richards.
Yeah, I think that the two nominations that came through R&J are supposed to be on the consent calendar and not the general orders.
Initially were, and then I got an email asking for them not to be, so I had to move them back to general orders.
Okay, someone does actually have to move in the meeting to do that.
Really? I think in the standing rules it says that you can request before the meeting.
You might be able to, but I can look. It's not important. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Chair Pascagoula?
Yeah, this is in regards to the fall. I was just wondering if you got any updates about Fall Fest.
So far, I have not received any updates about Fall Fest. I did return into all the reports and stuff that we needed to be able to be on that list. So I'm just kind of waiting for any feedback. But since you mentioned it, I'll go ahead and email them and get proactive on that.
All right, thank you.
Lamar?
Sorry, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I don't know if this is appropriate for me to speak at this point, but I want to just respond to the Fall Fest question. So Fall Fest, as I'm sure you all know, is happening, and the layout is going to be, dramatically different. It's not going to be on Hooker Field. The chancellor and the provost and I, some others met about this last week. It's going to be apparently along South Road. It's going to be a part of Hooker Field, and going to take over the entire quad, entire pit. So we're going to spread it out. As you all who have experienced it or who have heard about it, it's usually about 3,000 students on one field. They're going to change that because of COVID into the entire pit and quad area. They're also going to have food trucks along the entire South Road to kind of spread students out. And it will be open, to my understanding. It has been officially decided, of course, it'll be available for first-year students and second-year students who didn't get experience of Fall Fest as well. I think in CCAC we'll discuss this more in our next meeting because it's on our agenda. And by the way, congratulations to Elena, who is on CCAC, and we'll hopefully be able to participate in those conversations as well and provide the perspective of Senate in that area.
Great, thank you for that, Omar. All right, we are now. Oh, hold on 1 second. I'm getting a DM right here. Okay, awesome. Thank you for that, Senator Richards. I appreciate that. Also, Keisha just messaged me saying that she had another point on Fall Fest, so I'm going to go ahead and let her comment on that real quick if she's okay
Yeah,
with
that's
that.
fine. Everything Lamar said, I think also for student government, one of the important things to note is that this year the involvement fair will not be at Fall Fest. So there will be no clubs and club tables the way they usually have them on Hooker Fields right outside of convocation. Instead, they're going to have several weeks of welcome. And there'll be 1 week where each day will be focused on a different type of organization. So, for instance, multicultural organizations, service organizations, leadership, student governance, etc. So I'm not sure who is in charge of your recruiting and those practices, but that might be a relevant point to keep in mind.
Thank you so much for that. All right. I think we're going to go right into a public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? Okay, moving down our agenda, we're going to go right into the general orders calendar. We're going to begin with USB 103-013. I will pull it up and share screen. Give me 1 second. And then Chair Pasapula, if you want to go ahead and present.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. So basically, I was reached out to by the director and assistant directors within the Executive Committee of Student Wellness and Safety, and they had mentioned to me that there is no actual place in the code that mentions how we handle and assess reports of sexual assault and gender-based violence on campus. Also, sorry, trigger warnings will be, more content warnings, because we won't be discussing it in detail, but sexual harassment, sexual assault, gender-based violence will be mentioned during this conversation. But we noticed that there wasn't any codified way to handle these reports within student government. So we have spent the past few weeks working on this. Complete credit to Megan and Ethan, who did a lot of the work on researching, and then the gender-based violence working group came together to provide amendments to this bill, and it also went through R&J. And I can kind of speak on the process, and I also do have quite a few amendments since this came through R&J, just because I've heard a lot of different things from different people about their different concerns regarding this. So there will be avenues for people to report anonymously, and if they want to report with their name, and these reports will go through the student government advisor, and legally, because they are a paid member of the university, they do have to report them to Title IX, except it is entirely up to the survivor if they choose to actually launch that investigation. So that's an important thing to note. And then in terms of reporting on an anonymous level, which is an amendment I still have to add into this bill, that will go through hopefully an unpaid member of the undergraduate and graduate student government, since there is that legality issue there with paid members being required to report. And the reason that we did that is because, it is obvious that the Title IX office at UNC has not had the best track record with these reports. And so we want to make sure that we are not accidentally aiding in further trauma by these survivors. And so, again, I do have a lot of different amendments to this bill that I do need to fix, because there are a few different issues that I noticed with the bill. But I will also, is it possible for me to give speaking privileges to Ethan, if he's here?
I believe so. If you'd like to have him cover it, if he's worked on it.
Yeah, I would. I'm just trying to see if he's here today. Oh, yes, he is. So. Oh, sorry, you can go.
Oh, sure. And Megan should be hopping on in just a moment. So if it'd be helpful, I can just give sort of a brief overview of it. Or Chair Pasapula, I'll defer to you. Do we just want to do a full reading of it? Or I know you have a number of amendments. Should we do an introduction first?
Yeah, I probably think an introduction would be best. I know, because you and Megan worked on this, and I know Megan's not here yet. So if you want to talk through it a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, so just as Chair Pasapula said, this is really to introduce a new accountability measure within the student government code. So as it stands at the moment, sexual or gender-based violence or allegations of it are only handled, there's only accountability measures for candidates for student body president or other office. And there is not an overarching accountability measure for students holding positions within student government. elected or non-elected. And I should say that this is really designed to be for both graduate and undergraduate student government. So after moving through this body, we're hoping to concurrently move it through the Graduate and Professional Student Government Senate, and then through JGC, as it really pertains to both. So starting here from the top, it starts out really just describing how we are working definition of sexual violence or sexual and gender-based violence and harassment, so that there isn't any ambiguity in terms of what kind of accountability we want in this bill. And then moving from the definition section, so after A, B, C, thank you. So the D clause here is really where we start to get into the actionable steps of it. So survivors of sexual violence, sexual harassment, or gender-based harassment, and this is for any student of UNC, regardless of any affiliation with student government, are encouraged to notify first the student government advisor if they are bringing forward allegations of sexual violence, sexual harassment, or gender-based harassment against any member of any branch of UNC student government, using student government here in its true sense to include both undergraduate and graduate and professional students. So then it starts walking through the sort of high-level overview of what this process looks like. And we separately have developed a little bit more specifically what the steps are that the student government advisor should take and that other members of the process should take, both to hold it in confidence and also to make sure that it's being handled with the survivor's interests in mind. So after a report comes through to the student government advisor in section D, E, then sort of walks through the student government advisor, encouraging the survivor to report an incident with the Title IX office, and then also with appropriate law enforcement. So this was a clause here that we deliberated a little bit on, describing that as appropriate law enforcement, of course, because some cases would go through the Chapel Hill PD and some would go through UNC PD, depending really where the incident took place. And if the survivor chooses to report the incident to UNC student government through the student government advisor, per the North Carolina state law, they're a mandated reporter to also complete a separate report on behalf of student government to the EOC office. So the distinction here between sort of D and E and then F is that D and E are about sexual violence and sexual harassment overarchingly. And then E is specific to sexual violence. And then F is specific to sexual or gender-based harassment, where it is not a police investigation, but is instead something only handled internal to student government. So in that case, the student government advisor, the survivor should report it to the chief of staff's office, either the graduate and professional chief of staff and or the undergraduate chief of staff's office, which then in conjunction with the student body president's office will determine the appropriate responsive measures up to and including removal from student government and then reporting to the university for other investigation and or consequence processes. So walking then down to G and H, this is more details on sort of what the process actually looks like. So the student government advisor should help survivors access CAPS or other mental health services or other support services on campus, really recognizing the ramifications and impacts that incidents of sexual or gender-based violence or harassment have on survivors. And then H is a clarification for us as student government that we are not the investigators. Student government is not in a position to decide on the guilt of any party, but that we want to be here as protecting survivors, and then tying into really trusting survivors. So the point of a zero tolerance policy, which we talked about a lot in R&J earlier, was that student government should first and foremost be here for students of marginalized and discriminated backgrounds, including survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. So pending full review, the accused member should be suspended from all duties related to student government. And that's really just to say that we are trusting survivors. We talked about the statistics of this in R&J as well, but it ended up being less than 0.7% of all cases reported in the Chapel Hill, UNC, or Carborough area in the last 3 years have been false or unsupported by evidence. So, we are siding with the 99.3% of incidents reported that in which we do trust the survivor, and a zero tolerance policy suspending any accused member of student government from any duties. So moving then down to J, K, and L, again, sort of another measure of accountability is saying that it is confidential to all parties involved. And so part of this, the ramification of this, and sort of the more detailed practice and policy procedure that we wrote up as well, is that in order to be reinstated after an investigation, any accused member of student government also will need to then bring forward the university verdict themselves, right? So student government doesn't have access to those documents, but it is under the purview of any accused member that once an investigation is completed, they can release any documents they would like to. So if that individual would like to be reinstated in their position in student government, all they need to do is then just open the file to the student government advisor and show that there was a verdict of not guilty rendered by the university and by the police department, and that then they can be reinstated. And there are other clauses within sort of the more detailed document that we wrote up as well that say, at the end of a student government term, so at the end of an administration, a Senate session, if someone is still suspended from all duties related to student government and chooses to not bring forward a verdict, for whatever reason, including that they may be found guilty, then that party is prohibited from holding another office within student government until they can bring forward a verdict of not guilty. So, if a investigation takes longer than the Senate session or administration, then the individual will be able to bring forward the verdict still at a later time. To got called out. Why are you even still going? So I'm from here. This is my home. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, Lamar, it sounds like you might be unmuted.
Lamar.
As it is to... So, and then K, just talking about that this process should be continually revisited on a yearly basis to see if there are any issues with it. And that really refers to the more the more detailed process that I was describing, those descriptors that don't really pertain to a code addition, but are more sort of standard operating procedures for a student government advisor or for student government staff. And then L is more broadly that if it's carrying over that mandated reporter status that I was talking about for not just university paid employees, but actually for all members of student government. So saying that even if you are not a university employee, you don't fall under that legal mandated reporter. This is just saying that if you are choosing to take a student government position, you are agreeing to be required to report sexual violence, sexual harassment, or gender-based harassment by any other members of student government to the student government advisor. And just making sure that we do have, peer accountability within student government in that way.
And there are a few other things that I'd like to mention. So,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'll share the screen
Okay,
again.
thank you. So there are a few other things that I wanted to address, and that I mean, this could also be taken during discussion if necessary. I was just going to talk about different amendments that I had.
Yeah, I think we may need to wait for discussion if it's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right, we'll move into a Q&A period if there's any questions for Chair Pasapula. All right, seeing none, is there a motion to move into discussion?
Motion to enter discussion.
A second?
Second.
All right, we're going to move into discussion. Senator Richards.
Sure. So after R&J met to discuss this bill, I had a couple of questions for the Title IX office. So I sent an email to Elizabeth Hall, who has like 4 titles, but she's the like interim director of the equal opportunity. She's the interim director of EOC, and she's the acting Title IX coordinator. And she replied to my email with a number of concerns about the bill. I'm just going to read the email verbatim, and people can discuss it. So here we go. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for reaching out and for the student government's interest in addressing sexual misconduct. This proposal relates to an ongoing conversation EOC is having with the Office of Student Life and Leadership. Since participating in student groups may be considered part of students' educational experience, students cannot be deprived of that opportunity without due process. The university has procedures in place to afford students that due process, which include the Emergency Evaluation and Action Committee process and the EOC investigation and hearing process. Suspending a student from participation in student government based on a report of sexual misconduct would raise due process concerns. Additionally, prohibiting contact with other student government members would raise First Amendment concerns. In terms of other concerns, I see that the proposal would give the Office of the Chief of Staff the responsibility to receive reports. The university has designated offices who are responsible for receiving reports of this nature, and those are defined in university policy. I also note that the bill requires student government members to report sexual misconduct. I'd like to say, just me, Andrew, this one is my bad. This was my idea. This was my amendment in R&J. This could interfere with the survivors agency to share their report with individuals of their choice when they are ready to do so. I'm not able to attend the meeting tomorrow, but if you would like to talk further about this, I'm happy to do so. I'm also happy to discuss with you or others in your group how the EOC partners with student group advisors to provide supportive measures when we receive reports of sexual misconduct involving a student group member. Given ongoing conversations about this topic with OSLL, I'd ask Bobby to join us if you do want to meet. And Bobby was, that's Bobby Kunzman, who's the student government advisor. He was CC'd on this email. If anybody has any like questions about the email, go ahead. But if somebody wants to just talk about it, that's also fine.
Yeah, could you go through like each one at a time just so we could discuss them? Because I think
we can do that. I can do that. So the first one is, since participating in student groups may be considered part of students' educational experience, students cannot be deprived of that opportunity without due process. The university has procedures in place to afford students that due process, which include the Emergency Evaluation and Action Committee process and the EOC investigation and hearing process. Yeah, I'll put it in the teams as well. Suspending a student from participation in student government based on a report of sexual misconduct would raise due process concerns and First Amendment concerns. So that is the, subsection I. And I will just
well, I mean, anybody else can speak on that if they would like, but from my point of view, the reason we have that zero tolerance policy is because I think it's going to be more of a detriment to the rest of the student government and, leaders and just general body members. It's going to be more of a detriment to their education if they are working alongside somebody that might be, responsible or, an actual abuser. And so that's why that policy is in place. And I do want to bring awareness and attention to the Pull Up UNC movement, which I think is a very strong and important movement that a lot of student organizations participated in which they all instituted zero tolerance policies for abusers. So that is kind of the main reason we took on that approach for zero tolerance policy. And in terms of due process, and I will be amending the zero tolerance policy a little bit. And so how this will work is if Title IX investigations are launched, pending full review of the investigation, they will be suspended. And in terms of ones that, there is non-investigation launched, they will have an indefinite suspension. But in the result of that indefinite suspension, there is that responsibility that goes to the chief of staff and the student body president in terms of what they think is best. So there is still some type of due process within that. And I know that you had mentioned in doing an impeachment proceeding rather than the zero tolerance policy. But the issue with that is that there are a lot of members of student government who don't fall under impeachment. So that it was a reason we didn't change that policy to reflect impeachment. But if there's anything else that anyone wants to mention regarding that complaint or concern.
Senator Richards, do you want to respond to that, or do you want me to move to Senator Rampani?
Yeah, I can briefly. I will say that I believe that impeachment, I like the way that I read this email is that I think that Ms. Hall is telling us that this is just illegal and we will get sued if this happens. And if we get sued, that's really bad for us. And I think the Board of Trustees will use that opportunity to just kind of 86 student government as a whole. But I do agree that there should be a process to remove people. I would say that I think impeachment fulfills a due process requirement. And we could expand impeachment to like just encapsulate everybody, or say like if you were accused of sexual assault or misconduct, you are subject to impeachment no matter what. But I would be, concerned from a legal standpoint, basically.
All right, Senator Rampani.
Senator Richards almost completely said what I was going to say. So props to Senator Richards. And I certainly understand the zero tolerance policy, and I understand that we should, as a culture, have a zero tolerance policy for this sort of thing. But I do agree with Senator Richards in the sense that I don't want to put us in a situation where we can, as an organization, get kind of hammered down on for something that could have been dealt with. If we can create some sort of like expedited process for impeachment, or specify that impeachment is available for every member of student government somewhere else in the code instead of just saying you're out, I think that would be more beneficial, and also could apply to other things as well that we're not thinking about right now.
Senator Desai.
Yeah, I just have a question. So this is perhaps for anybody who can answer it. And I know we moved past the Q&A period, but this just came to my mind. In that, if the zero tolerance policy, doesn't the zero tolerance policy already implement a due process procedure through the university and not within student government? Because that's what I was a little bit confused about, because doesn't the accuser have to go through the university investigation, which is the due process element of it? I'm just a little confused, but if anybody can answer my question, that would be great.
Does anyone want to directly answer that, or do you have a different point?
Yeah, the email does kind of touch on that briefly. And I think that what the Ms. Hall is trying to say is that there is a process that the university can initiate to remove people from student government and other clubs. And it's, if you want to look at the email, it's in Teams. It's the second paragraph talking about the university has procedures in place to afford students that due process, which include the emergency evaluation and action committee process and the EOC investigation and hearing process. I don't think those processes are good, to be clear. I think they suck. I actually philosophically think that we should not be referring people to the Title IX office. I think that it's just actively bad. But the that due process does exist. It is possible for the university to remove people from student organizations. But I don't think that the suspension before there is a hearing does satisfy due process. We could ask, we can consult this person further. We can have a meeting. But I'm obviously not a lawyer, and Ms. Hall is, so I'm not an expert.
Chair Fiore.
Yeah, I just want to touch briefly on that last bit that Senator Richards mentioned, which is just that the issue with our automatic, if we were to implement this bill, the automatic suspension is that there is no due process there, because it automatically kicks in the second that someone is accused or that the Title IX investigation is started. And that is not due process, because that's just something that if you report something to Title IX, they have to investigate or they have to look into that. But there's nothing on our end that's creating a system for that. And so that is, I think, the issue with due process. I think that we should really go instead for this impeachment process, even if it's an expedited one, especially in the case of sexual assault. I think that's totally appropriate to expedite it. But as long as there is a process in which we have some kind of hearing, that does seem like due process, and would fulfill that requirement and avoid us getting marked by the Board of Trustees or other interested parties.
Chair Pasapula?
I think what could be possible is we have that suspension until there is the impeachment proceeding. I don't know how y'all feel about that, if that is due process, but I just think it's important that people aren't working alongside abusers. And I guess that there is the legality issue with that, but I feel like that there is some due process still there, knowing that they still have a set time of this is when they will have that proceeding. But I don't know if anybody else wants to speak on that, if you think that is a friendly amendment.
Senator Desai.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the chat, but a probationary period perhaps could be the good middle ground between both parties that are being mentioned here, in that we could have supervision in terms of limiting the powers of what somebody who is accused could do, because that is also keeping them under watch. But also we have that probationary period with the person who's watching to keep them in line, and have that person work with them in creating an impeachment hearing date, and we can consistently expedite that process. And that person reports to us to make sure that we get the process going down, getting the ball rolling. I can't speak, but perhaps that's something we'd be willing to discuss.
Chair Pasapula?
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering what would the difference be between the probation and the suspension? Because like, for how it sounds for me, it just sounds like they're just the same thing with two different words, but I don't know if anyone would like to talk about what the difference between that would be.
Does anyone want to extend speaking privileges to Ethan Phillips?
Yes, I extend speaking privileges.
Okay, go ahead, Ethan.
Thank you. I have a question for those who would like to push this through more of an impeachment process, which is what kind of information would you anticipate would be brought forward in an impeachment hearing, considering that the information to an ongoing investigation by Title IX, EOC, UNCPD are confidential in these matters. And I think I'm having trouble understanding what would be discussed in an impeachment hearing to impeach a member of student government for an issue like this.
Senator Rampani.
Somebody can answer Ethan's question before if somebody would like to, because I'm not.
Anyone have a response to Ethan's question? Senator Richards, go ahead.
Yeah, my impression is that the Senate, or like whoever, I guess one of the two Senates, because this applies to both the graduate and undergraduate professional, whatever. My impression is the Senate could impeach just solely on the basis of an accusation. I think that's allowed, just based on my reading, at least of the impeachment proceedings that exist in the undergraduate code. I don't know anything about the graduate code, and I'm not super familiar with the rest of the impeachment offices. But we could expand the Senate's power of impeachment from any elected or appointed official to any official in student government who is an undergraduate. And then you could do the same for graduates, the graduate Senate. That probably just is due process enough to avoid the legal issue, but again, not a lawyer, do not know for sure. And I think that we should consult with the Title IX office on this.
All right, Senator Rampani.
Yeah, I was just for this debate, I was gonna bring up some of the stuff we were talking about in the chat, and maybe we want to think of some sort of process similar to an indictment, where we come to some preliminary conclusion as to whether or not we think it's warranting a suspension until the other offices come to a conclusion. Because I don't think it would be very smart for us legally, or even putting a burden on ourselves, to make a conclusion on evidence that we don't have, and like Ethan had just talked about, is not even subject to our investigatory power, right? So if we could somehow build a indictment suspension process as a preliminary step, and then wait until those investigations were complete to make final decisions.
Chair Robinson.
To respond directly to what Director Phillips, I share concern about how viable an impeachment process would be, for the simple example that, firstly, to respond to Senator Richards, because R&J deals with impeachment, I have read that part of the code, and that process is basically whatever we want it to be. It's incredibly vague. That's number one. But number two, an impeachment process would be just as much a court of public opinion as anything, and would be just as much of a due process concern, in my view, because I think, as Director Phillips said correctly, any information that would actually lead to a reasonable conclusion being reached would be inadmissible in such a proceeding because of the legitimate investigation that would be taking place by the Title IX office, the university, or whoever else. So I agree with Director Phillips that I think impeachment would be it would be a glorified show. It wouldn't accomplish anything effective, in my view, if we couldn't bring in legitimate information that would be held by others who would not be releasing it to us as their investigation was unfolding.
Senator Gibbon.
I believe the question was raised upon like probation versus suspension, and the way I interpret probation is like they're still able to participate. So I don't know if that's like something that would be like, I don't know if that was intended by that, but I consider probation like it's like a strike policy is how I see it, and I don't know if that's like what we're going for at all. But then there's like the legal issues. So.
Chair Robinson.
I would like to ask just briefly, if we've already heard back from the Title IX coordinator about each of her specific legal issues, if we are to, and of course, as Senator Richards has said, her being a lawyer and the authority on this university means what she said is how it is. And I'm asking to Chair Pasapula, to Director Phillips, does anyone have any definitive ideas of a compromise or a change that could fit within her legal parameters? Because I think if we were to take it piece by piece in what she views as being unlawful, can we take it piece by piece that way, or are we all just kind of at an impasse here? I'm just curious about your thoughts.
Oh, sorry. Can I direct speaking privileges to Ethan?
No, so if we do that, we are going to have to go through the entire roll call vote to extend speaking privileges to him. So if there's any way he could send you his comments,
Can
that
we
would
just
be great.
pretend that we did that and not?
No, I'm sorry, we can't.
Wait, do I have standing speaking privileges? I actually want to ask that. I think I do, but I want to verify. Okay, well, you can also send your comments too, just in case that's.
Could we move to do that? I think his input would be really valid here. I'd like to move to extend speaking privileges and initiate a call vote.
Okay. Maya, can you do the roll call vote?
Madam Speaker, I motion
Sorry,
to do this
what?
by unanimous consent.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think you can, but I don't know. I'm not.
I move to approve Director Phillips by unanimous consent.
Okay, so is there anyone who doesn't consent? All right, go ahead.
I appreciate that. Thank y'all. So based on sort of the due process guidelines there, that thank you, Bobby, for putting those in the chat. I think that there is something that could be built out that would fulfill a lot of these. I mean, it sounds like really the two requirements are, or three, is a descript process, allowable for speaking on one's behalf, and the right to an appeal. And I think all three of those could be met by making a process by which someone could, either by meeting directly with the student government advisor or by way of special hearing, special meeting with, the whoever we decide within student government, that I think that could take place outside of what is a vague process for impeachment, and still abide by some of the confidentiality requirements. And then a right to an appeal. I think that is the process by which someone can bring forward the verdict of a find or investigation through the university and appeal the decision to remove them from student government if found not guilty. But that is my reading of it. So if there are opposition to that as a process, love to hear it.
Dr. Bobby.
As you all discussed this, I think one of the questions I would have, and I think something that you all should really consider is, I definitely applaud the efforts and the direction of where you're going. I don't necessarily know if you're ready right now. And I would recommend meeting, for instance, with Elizabeth Hall and Christy Hurt. Christy Hurt will be starting on July 6th, and she's going to be our new senior prevention strategy officer in particular with the institution. And part of her role, and she has a very good wealth of knowledge and experience in this, as she was before leaving UNC, she was the director of the Orange County Rape Crisis Center. So she can really help with moving the direction, I think, what you all want. But I think there's a number of nuances you've got to navigate, in particular around due process. And I think I would probably echo the sentiment. You want to probably keep that within like the impeachment realm versus having a different policy. And I can't be named in a lot of this section because I, as an employee of the university, already have a set of rules and responsibilities that I have to follow, and it's very specific. And so the code does not necessarily trump employment in regards to that. And so there is a reporting, and I think at the core, the sentiment, right, is we want to make sure that survivors agency is the priority in this process. And so creating something that might usurp a survivor's agency, I think the intent in this group is you don't want to necessarily do that. And so I would recommend potentially tabling it so you can have further conversations with the right folks and create something that would work for everybody.
Lamar, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, Bobby stole a lot of what I was going to say. I'm joking, he didn't steal it. But I'm going to second a good bit of what he said. Just given the conversation, and I just had a chance to see Elizabeth's email as well. I think that, so this isn't new for, I think, probably a lot of you, but especially not for me, just given, EOC conversations and reporting conversations and things like that. I do think that there may needs to be some further conversation around what we want our role to be. I can just say this is kind of like, conversation we have on CCAC about no one really wants to enforce mass mandate or, things like that and be the role of the enforcer or have ourselves enter into something that could potentially lead to legal questions and things like this. I do think it will be useful and purposeful to have a further conversation about this, maybe with, I think, a bunch, not with the appropriate stakeholders. So folks from the Senate, from all branches, and if we see this going to the graduate side, then we want to include our peers and our friends on the graduate side as well, and then folks from EOC and maybe even university council, depending on certain things and aspects of it. I just think that we have seen before, if when student government wants to do something and it may not be 100% above board, and we've did it anyway, and we got down the road and it's been some issues and hiccups. And I also think this is something that's really important, right? Making sure we're there as a source of support for those within the student government, and also making sure that we as a USO and as an organization are holding ourselves to the highest standard as those who are elected and appointed to represent all undergraduate students. And so I definitely agree with that. I just think that we want to be very, very specific and intentional in how we do that. And I don't have all the answers. And unfortunately, I don't think any one person has all the answers, but I think what we can do is invite more voices to this conversation. Because even Bobby's question just now, I think each time I hear one of you all speak, you say things that are so good, and it causes like 5 other questions in my head. And so I have this growing list of questions. Like even I, as technically a quote unquote employee of the university, what does that mean for me as student body president? Because I also am an employee as well. Like those are questions I would have, right? And so I think that this is a larger conversation that could lead to even more things other than just one bill.
Chair Everett.
Yeah, not to hop on the bandwagon, but I also did have these like kind of same concerns. I kind of spoke with them briefly with Chair Robertson and Chair Pasapula. I think for me, mine was more in terms of the moral standing. I wasn't really aware of the legal standing, but I think back to the survivors of sexual assault and sexual harassment, things like that, you know, it can be hard to come forward. I think it goes back to what Director Phillips had said earlier about making sure we have like the right parties involved and not just, you know, letting this go out to all of student government because it's a very private matter. So I do think, you know, possibly tabling it and getting the qualified professionals in to talk about it would be a great option, as well as this would be a great opportunity for branch collaboration. I know we've all wanted to do that. So yeah.
Great. Chair Fiore.
Yeah, Chair Pasapula, I want to thank you for introducing this. I think this is a great idea. I think we may just not be ready for it yet. And I think that that's been totally covered by President Richards and by Dr. Kunzman. And I'd like to make a motion at this time to table this until our next meeting. We'll have a little bit more time to go over this and have a little bit better idea of how to do this legally and in the best way possible to like achieve the spirit of this bill.
So you're making a motion to table?
Yeah.
All right. Motion.
Just a brief point of privilege. The motion to table sucks and is very annoying. And it would be, we would have to vote again at the next meeting to re-accept, and then we would have to fully amend the bill. So it's probably easier if we can withdraw the bill and then submit a new bill before the next meeting.
All right.
I'm going to make my motion to withdraw.
Only the sponsor can withdraw the bill.
I'm so sorry, Chair Fiore. What did you say?
I can't make that motion, so Chair Pascal would have to make that motion if she's amenable to that. If not, I would like to make the motion to table, but that's contingent on Chair Pascal's motion.
All right, sorry, I was going to see if you were withdraw. So you're okay with withdrawing your motion, so we can see if Chair Pascula would like. Chair Pascula, would you like to withdraw your legislation?
Yes, I would like to withdraw.
Okay. All right. Let me pull up the next. We are going to move on to USR 103014, a resolution to confirm an undergraduate honor court vice chair. President Richards, would you like to introduce this?
One second, please. Sorry.
Chair Robinson.
If I could just have a quick moment of personal privilege while we're waiting on the president to present. Just want to say on behalf of R&J how much we enjoyed having these nominees come before the committee, and they absolutely, via their resumes and via their answers, their enthusiasm, appeared to be entirely qualified for these positions, and that is why we recommended them favorably and why we hope they'll be confirmed. That was the conclusion our committee reached. I just wanted to give that information to the full Senate prior to hearing from them again.
Thank you for that. Lamar, are you ready?
I am, y'all. I'm not the most tech savvy person. I got too many tabs up. And Bobby, don't say nothing. Okay, I'm ready now. So yes, it is an honor of mine to submit Preeti for honor court vice chair. One of the things I think we did different, right, coming into my term was that we wanted to make sure that we had a strengthened our relationship with the branch, with the honor system in particular, and also make sure that we had an active, that students through our representation had an active voice in how the honor system was structured and the ongoing happenings there, including and notwithstanding the instrument and how we kind of guide and oversee the Office of Student Conduct. And so in the vetting process, alongside Vice President Smith, who is no longer with us, Preeti spoke and articulated her their thoughts completely well, and even in R&J confirmation did successfully. I think their resume will show you that they are thoroughly prepared for this role and that they will continue serving ambitiously in the honor system. And so I won't have some long-winded presentation, but I just want to submit Preeti for your confirmation this evening.
Great. Are there any questions for President Richards? All right. Is there a motion for discussion? Oh,
So
Chair.
moved.
All right, is there a second? All right, we are now in discussion on Preeti Dongara as undergraduate honor court vice chair. If anyone from R&J would like to speak on this person's qualifications, Chair Robinson.
Again, I don't mean to be a broken record, but at our previous committee meeting, we were really glad to have the nominees with us. And again, the honor court team did a wonderful job presenting them and explaining their qualifications. Pretty clearly seems qualified via her resume, and we asked just a short number of questions because we felt so confident in her abilities, as well as her nomination by the executive branch and her endorsement by the honor court team, who clearly think she's the right person for the job, and I share their feelings.
Are there any comments? Otherwise, I'll hear a motion to vote.
Motion to enter voting procedure.
Second.
All right, Maya, will you record the votes?
Yes. Give me one moment. I also have multiple tabs up, so give me 1 second. Okay. Senator Anadora?
Yes.
Senator Bamu?
Yes.
Senator Desai?
Yes.
Senator Dutta? Senator Dutta?
Maya, I believe she had to leave.
Okay, I'll just skip past her. Senator Everett?
Yes.
Senator Fiore, excuse me. Senator Fiore?
I said yes, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. Senator Guffey?
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Hassios?
Yes.
Senator Gibbon?
Yeah.
Okay, and then me. Senator Malodikar?
Yes.
Senator Nimla?
Yes.
Senator Pasapula?
Yes.
Speaker Powell. Did I hear a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Senator Rampani?
Yes.
Senator Richards?
Yes.
Senator Robinson?
Yes.
Okay. And then Senator Suber, well, not present. And Senator Syed, have you been able to join with us? I don't.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, Senator Wilkerson?
Yes.
Okay, and Senator Wilkins?
Yes.
Okay. And with a total of 17 yeas, this bill does pass. Well, yeah.
Great. All right, we're going to move on to USR 103015, a resolution to confirm undergraduate honor court vice chair. President Richards, would you like to introduce this?
Yeah, sure. So in similar fashion, I am also excited to present Emily for to be vetted, to be confirmed rather, for the role of vice chair. And for the same reasons that I said before, Preeti, but also just because I believe that they both, did exemplary in exemplary fashion. They both answered questions and presented themselves during the vetting period on both sides in our system and executive branch. And with Vice President Smith's help, he led that vetting process and was thoroughly pleased with their work. And I believe R&J was as well. And so I would like to submit them for you all's approval.
Great. Are there any questions? Right. Is there a motion to enter discussion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we are now in discussion. Chair Robinson.
Just again, on behalf of the committee, Emily proved herself to be equally as qualified as Preeti, and we think she's going to do a great job if confirmed. And again, we recommended her favorably and hope she'll be confirmed.
Motion to enter voting procedure.
There a second?
Second.
All right, Maya.
Okay, once again, Senator Anadura.
Yes.
Okay, capitalize that. Okay, and then Senator Bumley.
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Desai.
Yes.
Okay, Senator Dutta. I think we already did that. Senator Everett.
Yes.
Okay, Senator Fiore.
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Guffey.
Yes.
Senator Hacios.
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Gibbon. Okay. Senator Maldekar.
Yes.
Senator Nimla.
Yes.
Senator Pasapula.
Yes.
Thank you. Speaker Powell.
Yes.
Senator Rampani.
Yes.
Senator Richards.
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Robinson.
Yes.
And then Senator Syed.
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Wilkerson.
Yes.
Thank you. And Senator Wilkins.
Yes.
Okay. And once again, with 19 votes as yes, she does pass.
Great, thank you so much. We are going to move on to USB 103016, a bill to subsequently appropriate student government funds to Honor Court. I'm going to share my screen. Chair Everett, would you like to present?
Yes, I can. Yeah, so this is the budget that went through Finance Committee for the Honor Court. As you can see listed there, I do want to give Q and Brandon a chance to speak up for their own budget. So I will ask to take motion to extend speaking privilege to both of them with unanimous consent.
Second.
All right, is there any objections? Okay, seeing none, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I can talk about this. I'll just briefly go through. I know what we're looking for in each of these categories, what we'll be using it for, and we'll be open to any questions regarding that. First one, capital expenditures. This is definitely the biggest ask. Finance Committee approved 2,500. We initially and still do request 4,000. So just something to keep in mind, that'll go toward the purchase of new iPads. So currently we have iPads that we use in the Honor Court suite for hearings. We put the case file online, not really online, it's on an app, on like a File Explorer app to be used to minimize paper consumption in the hearings. The iPads that were getting quite old and breaking, I actually went in this morning and inventoried them. Out of the 10 or 11 we have, 6 of them are working. They were manufactured in 2011 and discontinued in 2014. So while I don't have a purchase date, they are possibly up to 10 years old. So we are requesting the funding for the purchase of 10 new iPads and cases, which will come out to about 3,500-ish plus tax. In addition to that, we do have the opportunity in the honor system suite to run 2 hearings at once. While it doesn't happen all the time, it does definitely happen. And with COVID, we've been doing it more and more. And we would like the opportunity to have iPads for the court members and the councils in both of those hearings. So the addition of extra iPads would allow us to do that, which is not something we've had previously. So obviously open to more questions about that, but moving on, equipment rental, 2,500, that's for our copy machine and the honor system suite. That costs about $1,250 a semester, so times 2 semesters. that gets you to the 2,500 there. And then for the office supplies, that is that's just basic things we use to help train, such as manuals for new staff members, copies of the instrument to give out, manila envelopes that we use for office files, expo markers. We have like whiteboards in the hearing rooms that we use for deliberation, and go through a lot of expo markers. They're not super cheap, so all that will go towards office supplies, and that's in line with what we've requested in previous years. Printing and publicity, 200 for paper. Like I said, we're switching to all virtual. Q talked about that in his opening statement a little bit. And so this is substantially less than the amount of money we typically request for paper. We will still need a little bit for some forms, but we're in the process of transitioning all forms to e-signatures, and everything completely online to help minimize our impact on the environment and make it more accessible to students who may or may not be in the Chapel Hill area. Programming, that $1,000 will go towards training. That includes training from various experts, such as experts on hazing for organization cases, experts on mental health who can help the court with talking about the mental health impacts of being a court member in the hearing, and also how to assist accused students with that as they go through the process. And then also implicit bias. That's a training that we typically like to do as a court. I think it's really important, and would like to continue doing that as well. Salaries and stipends are code mandated, so nothing changed there. Subscription, $1,000 is for 10 subscriptions of Calendly for 12 months, which is something that AG staff uses a little bit more than I do. So Q can answer questions about that, but it is a way for the leadership to sync their calendars and present it to accused students, or really any student who wants to meet with leadership. It shows them their schedule when they're available. We'll create Zoom links for them. It's a really great resource, super helpful for a high caseload that we've been experiencing recently. And then telephone and internet, that's for the internet that we have to pay in the honor system suite. It's like, I don't know, it's around like $75 a month, so times 12 is where we get that amount. And yeah, that's the overview.
Great. I just wanted to clarify kind of the way I plan on doing this is we'll do like a question period. When we move in discussion, I'll move down by the categories to kind of make this a little bit easier as we go. So are there any specific questions for Chair Everett right now? If not, I'll hear a motion.
Motion to enter question and answer period.
Do you mean a motion to enter discussion? Is that okay?
Yes, sorry.
Second.
Second.
We are now in discussion, starting with capital expenditures. Are there any points of discussion on capital expenditures? Okay. Are there any points of discussion on equipment rental? Okay. Are there any points of discussion on office supplies?
I'm sorry, I do have a point of discussion on capital expenditures, just to make sure I heard right. So can you go over that one more time? I heard iPads, and I think you said you needed 10 iPads for $3,500 is what you were asking for, and I'm just confused how that came up.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Oh, sorry.
You're good. I think we have to extend speaking privileges for you, unless Chair Everett can answer that question.
I'm sorry, I was crunching numbers. What was the question again? That's totally my fault. I heard iPads, so.
Just the capital expenditures column, what that was for, right? So iPads, obviously in my brain, just how that balances out, and how y'all came to because I know he had asked for 3,500, how y'all came to 2,500.
Yeah, so we have, I know Senate or the Finance Committee as a whole, we have like a funding limit, and they did have, I think he just said they have 6 working iPads. So that would give them, I think eight or six new iPads, and that'll cover the rest half of them. But they can always request more funding, and this goes to all branches. I encourage you to request more funding during fall subsequent and the other cycles.
Awesome, thanks.
Chair Robinson.
I don't know if perhaps Chair Everett can answer this question, but it was my understanding that 2,500 was a cut down from what the Honor Court wanted, in that they wanted a full 10, but compromised this number with the understanding that they would perhaps be requesting more at the next fundraising cycle. Is that a correct characterization of what happened, Chair Everett?
Yes, that is. It was just because we do have to meet that budget mark, but they also do have some working iPads right now that'll hold them over until they can get their funds from the fall subsequent.
Thank you.
Also, I think since it is their budget, we're going to let them respond. So I apologize for cutting you off earlier, Brandon. You will be able to respond if there are any more questions aimed at you. Senator Desai.
Yeah, I just wanted a clarification on what the subscription and periodicals piece of information was pertaining to. I believe Honor Court Chair mentioned that it was relating to Calendly, and I also wanted to ask how much it would be, because you mentioned it was for 10 people. So, and how much it would be for each person. I'm assuming it's 1,000 divided by 10, obviously, which is 100. But, and if we could work to find a different solution that's more affordable, more efficient for the Honor Court. I know that's not something that can come up for discussion right now, but I was wondering if Honor Court Chair could clarify that section for me.
Yeah, I can discuss a little bit about Calendly, since that's a little bit more under AG staff. What we chiefly use Calendly for is to assist us in scheduling appointments with accused students and reporting parties. So for every case that we have a minimum of 2 people that we need to meet with. Multiply that, our MAs, they currently have 13 cases. Minimum, they need to meet with 2 people, and then they also need to schedule meetings with minimum of 2 other councils. So that's immediately 4 other people that they need to schedule meetings with. As you can imagine, that is a lot of time that is spent just emailing back and forth. Not everyone uses Outlook or Google Calendar, especially professors or accused students sometimes. So having Calendly as just a program where it sends a list of dates where the managing associate or the council or the deputy is available to meet with students, it's drastically cut down on the amount of back and forth we've had to have with students regarding when we can meet. And then because of the extremely high caseload that we have, we've had a lot of scheduling issues in terms of we're available one day, then someone else takes that. The previous email that we sent is not applicable. So the avenue that I've explored that is secure by the university. I did explore other avenues, but Calendly was the one that was the most secure, the most efficient from what I've seen. This enables us to keep all of that information secure. So whenever students and reporting parties do sign up for events, it's not in any company's possession that isn't trusted by the university, as well as the ability to do things like schedule Zoom meetings immediately so that we don't have to spend more time going back, scheduling the Zoom meetings, making sure that the students, reporting parties, members of the Honor Court have the right one. Yeah, so I'd be willing to answer any other questions regarding Calendly or our subscriptions.
Sorry, when I share screen, sometimes it gets weird for me to unmute. Ashna?
Can I just speak, or do you need to?
Standing rules, I think that you are one of the people that can speak without privileges. If anyone has an objection to that, please correct me, but I do believe the standing rules say that under speaking privileges, the following student government officers shall be extended speaking privileges without objection: SVP, president, GPSF, vice president, and undergraduate EBO level officers. And in parentheses, it does include the treasurer. So
awesome. Thank you so much. I just had a really quick question. So Within that capital expenditures category, I'm not sure if this was mentioned last week. If it was, forgive me, but just to repeat, how much do each of the iPads cost?
So the ones I was looking at, they're just the cheapest ones that they sell. We don't really need anything fancy. They're 300 a piece. Cases are also relatively inexpensive, and then just like a charging dock to hold all of them. And then that together plus tax was looking at about 3,500 for 10 of them. That's what the breakdown comes to when I did the math earlier today.
Right. Okay. Then I recommend changing categories because the capital expenditure is when one item costs $500 or more. So if with tax it comes out to under $500, I just recommend changing it to something else, like equipment, for example.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't realize that it was per item. I thought it was total, so that's why I put it under that.
Oh, no worries. That's a really common misconception, actually.
Thank you for that, Ashna. I think we can motion to move that in a second. Chair Fiore, are you next?
I believe Senator Rampani was actually next, or Chairman Robinson, both, I think they were before me.
Okay, Senator Rampani.
Just had a clarifying question for both either the AG or the Honor Chair Court. I know y'all have continually talked about increased load in terms of cases, but is that something that's anticipated to die down now that we're going back to in-person? And in in-person settings, are you still going to utilize these online subscriptions and other online resources?
Yeah, that's a great question. So fingers crossed, we never ever receive any honor code violations ever. Unfortunately, that's not the trend that we're seeing. I anticipating the reason I believe we've seen an increase in the amount of reporting is due to professors being more aware of the resources that are available online, which isn't something that will be solved once we return on campus. So I'm not necessarily anticipating a decrease in the amount of reports for the fall semester, although I would really like to say that I was. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Just if you intend to continue to use these online subscriptions and online platforms when we're back in person.
Okay, another great question. The short answer is yes. The honor system offices are extremely small. I plan on only having AG staff leadership interact with students virtually. I think students can still go down to honor system offices. We only have 4 office spaces that are open for students. So that's something that we'll take into account, but all of our, I plan on having all of our initial meetings, all of our preliminary meetings, which is what we would use Calendly for, to remain virtual.
All right, Chair Robinson.
In the Finance Committee meeting, I was not speaking, but I was listening. I'm curious for the Attorney General or the Honor Court Chair, whoever can answer this. Did we ever get a final count? Because I want to understand how many iPads y'all have that are working, how many you need, because we want to give you what you need. And if you truly need 10 to accomplish what needs to be accomplished, I think that's a conversation worth having. But I do want to understand how many you have that are working, how many you need to achieve your caseload, because I do think there's some merit to purchasing devices that all are the same generation, all exist in the same way, all charge the same way. I think there's some merit to that idea. Can you explain how many you have that work and what you need regarding the provisional allocation of money for iPad purchases?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I actually went to the honor system suite this morning to inventory them because that question was brought up in committee and I was unable to answer it. So there is about 10 down there, and 6 of them seem to be functioning fine. 4 of them are broken. They do break all the time though, and it is a pain because then we have to print out the file, and it can be quite extensive. We do need at least 10 for a single hearing, and then obviously more for double hearings. I didn't want to overwhelm the Senate with asking for like a bunch of money for many iPads, so that's why I capped it at 10 iPads. And I do agree that there is a lot of benefit to having all the same generation, having the same cases. We work with IT on making sure that everything is secure. So having them all run on the same operating system is also important for security for our files and all. And that's why I was requesting for the amount to replace what we would need for an entire hearing, basically to keep them all the same model and everything.
Chair Fiore.
Yeah, just some information for you all from the last financial committee meeting. These requests, especially from the judicial branch, were not only very comprehensive and well described, they're essential to the functioning of this branch, and are very reasonable, especially in comparison to some of the other branches' proposals. I really think that this is something that we should approve. And also, if we do not grant them enough money with this particular batch, there is always the next round, but I really do think this is very reasonable. It is only $2,500, which in the grand scheme of things is very small, and will go to making sure that our honor court runs smoothly, which is pretty important to the university. So I would recommend we approve this particular bit. Thanks.
Senator Richards.
Yeah, I was curious. I also went to the finance committee meeting. I was curious about two things. One, are you able to get support from the university for like tech support on the iPads, and repair support from the university on the iPads? And also, second, is there a particular reason that you aren't looking at moving to a more I know you said that you specifically want tablets, and I think that was fairly reasonable. But there's a reason. Is there a reason you're specifically not pursuing less expensive I don't know, Android tablets or whatever that are out there on the market?
Yes. To answer the first question, we do get ITS support on them for the program that we use. We upload it to we upload the file to a university server, and it's accessed through a file explorer app that we all get support for. We get support for Wi-Fi connectivity and Apple ID activation at all. They're frequently and they're making sure that they're working and all, and we're frequently contacting them when there's issues. To answer the second question, it's really just what we've been using, and I felt like $300 for a tablet was decently reasonable, so I was hoping to just continue with that. I felt that I know that the programs that we've been working will continue to work on a new iPad, and I know that like I just mentioned, we get support from the university, and I don't know what support we would get for a different tablet running a different operating system. So I was really just looking for continuity there, not to stir the pot or anything.
Chair Robinson.
One brief follow-up question. You said you have 6 working and 4 that are broken, and you're requesting several more. If we were to give you the money for 10 more iPads, would that give you enough total to hold 2 hearings at once?
Yeah, that would definitely give us enough. So there, in a typical hearing, there's 5 court members, and then the student and their counsel, and the reporting party and their counsel. So with that amount, we would have the student and their counsel share one, the reporting party and their counsel share one, which we do frequently have to do when they're broken, and it's not an issue. And then all court members would just get their own, and numbers wise, that would work out.
To ask one follow-up question to that, if we give you the amount of money you have currently requested as appears on this bill, is that enough for you to hold 2 at once?
I would say probably not. It would just result in more sharing. And it's definitely not ideal in normal circumstances. It's even more not ideal with COVID. I don't know what procedures we'll do for cleaning them, since they'll be shared devices, but it would definitely make me feel more comfortable, and probably make students and other people coming through the honor system more comfortable if they weren't going to be sharing those devices that people are touching with their hands and all.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, are there any more points of discussion, or is there any motions on this bill for amendments or to approve it as it is?
Motion to enter voting procedure.
Second.
Really briefly, if we done the thing that the treasurer said we should do to change the capital expenditures, to move it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any way that you could withdraw that, Senator Desai?
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, can someone make a motion to move capital expenditures into equipment?
Yeah, so I moved to reduce capital expenditures by $2,500 and increase equipment expenditures by $2,500. I think you're supposed to, never mind.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Keeping me humble, Senator Richards. Thank you so much. All right.
I have one more motion, or one more minute, sorry. Just now the time or later?
Hit me with it. Come on.
Cool. So I'd like to move in accordance with the Finance Committee. We do have to cut a little bit over $8,000 because we approved a little too much. And so we've kind of worked this out internally, but we wanted to share this with you all as well. We'd like to move to cut just for honor court, just a little bit, the office supplies by $250 from their original $800 down to whatever that is, if that's all right. If I can get a second.
Do we have to vote on amendments on that? I'm honestly not.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we need to vote on the 5,000. We need to go back, right?
We can just do the unanimous consent thing that we've been doing.
Okay.
Fine.
So can we just say that are there any objections? Okay, seeing none. All right. Are there any other amendments on this? Chair Fiore, is that math right? Did I cut the right amount? Okay. All right. Are there any other motions on this bill?
Do we have to like move to accept the Finance Committee's recommendations or something?
I think
to
that's
move the stuff over.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Is there like a motion to accept the other numbers approved by the Finance Committee?
So moved.
Second.
All right, fantastic. Maya, can you do a roll call vote on that?
Of course. So like a roll call just of this vote here.
A yes would be to approve the numbers I'm highlighting right here that I'm about to transfer. A no would be to not approve this budget.
So do I need to document this in the spreadsheet?
Yes. Yeah, this is the final vote.
Okay, awesome. Give me 1 second. Senator Anaduri.
Yes.
Senator Bamu.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Senator Desai.
Yes.
Senator Dutta, I believe she's still not here. Okay. Senator Everett.
Yes.
Senator Fiore.
Yes.
Senator Guffey.
Yes.
Senator Hassios.
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Gibbon.
Yes.
Senator Maldekar.
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Nimla.
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Pasapula.
Yes.
Speaker Powell.
Yes.
Senator Rampani.
Yes.
Senator Richards.
Yes.
Senator Robinson.
Yes.
And then Senator Superstone here. Senator Syed.
Yes.
Senator Wilkerson.
Yes.
And Senator Wilkins.
Yes.
So once again, with 19 yays, this amendment does pass.
Great. We are going to move on to USB 103017, a bill to subsequently appropriate student government funds to undergraduate Senate. Oh, thank you, Senator Nimble. I just got your message. I'm going to share screen. Chair Everett, if you'd be okay with covering this.
Yes, I can. Pretty self-explanatory. Office supplies are, office supplies. So don't need to go over that one. Postage, envelopes, stamps, printing and publicity. This includes the Canva account. Speaker pro tempore, Maya Logan had to pay for it out of pocket last year. So this covers our membership for that, as well as stickers for, I don't remember what it's called, the fall big night thing that they do. It's for that. Student government salary stipends, that's all, dictated by the code, as well as the telephone. We pay for that in student government suite. And that is, that amount right there. So that's pretty much Fall Fest. Yes, thank you, Dr. Bobby. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Great. Are there any questions? Senator Richards.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was it that you said that SPT Powell had to pay for last year? I was zoning out.
That was Speaker pro tempore Logan. She had to pay for the Canva Pro account.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And I can clarify that's usually used by our staff for like public pubbing and stuff like that, and making graphics and whatnot. Chair Fiore.
Yeah, just for the benefit of everybody. So we covered this in financial committees. This is a question to get this on people's radar. Is it not correct that we cannot get rid of the telephone? And this is something that unfortunately we have to keep.
That is correct. I honestly think it's in the code. I could be wrong, but that's just like what it has to happen. So it is a fixed cost for the econ people. So.
Oh wait, that said the phone. Bobby, did you just change our lives?
Save $90. Not bad.
I love it. Okay, we will handle that in a bit. Is there a motion?
Motion to enter discussion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Awesome. All right, we are now in discussion. Is there any amendments anyone wants to make? Chair Fiore, just because I want to give it to her, I feel like this is right.
Thank you. I really wanted to get rid of this before, and I was told I couldn't. Now I can. I would love to move to get rid of this $90 for this telephone, so Bobby doesn't have to pay for it. And we don't have to pay for it. So I make a motion to change that from $90 to $0.
Would you like to do that by unanimous consent?
I would.
All right. Are there any objections? Speak now or forever hold your peace. I'll check the chat in case anyone's. All right. So moved. Let me change that now. All right. Are there any points of discussion on this? I think, Chair Robinson.
So just so I understand, we're only now, without the phone, we're only asking for like $700 and some above the code mandated stipend. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
I just wanted to clarify. I mean, it just seems very, very low, but if that's what we need, that's what we need. I'd like to hear that. So very good.
All right. Are there any other? Senator Desai.
Motion under voting procedure.
Okay.
Okay, would that be okay? I'm assuming that that's what that's going to mean is on the current budget here. All right, Maya, will you take over?
Of course. Okay, starting from the top. Senator Anadure?
Yes.
Senator Bamu?
Yes.
Senator Desai?
Yes.
Senator Dutta? Oh, I'm sorry, forgot. Senator Everett?
Yes.
Senator Fiore?
Yes.
Senator Guffey?
Yes.
Senator Hassios?
Yes.
Senator Gibbon?
Yes.
Then me, yes. Senator Maldekar?
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Nimla?
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Pasapula?
Yes.
Speaker Powell?
Yes.
Senator Rampani?
Yes.
Senator Richards,
Yes.
Senator Robinson,
Yes.
and then skipping past Sober, Senator Syed,
Yes.
Senator Wilkerson,
Yes.
Senator Wilkins.
Yes.
You. And so with a vote of 19 yays, this does pass.
Fantastic. All right. Let me get to the. We are now going to oh, I apologize, guys. Oh, no, here it is. Okay. Number at the top too. Oh, I'll cover that later on when I go through these for the last time. All right, we're going to consider USB 103-018. All right, Chair Everett. This is a bill to subsequently appropriate student government funds to the executive branch. Chair Everett, go
Great.
ahead.
So I'll just go down by the values one by one. I guess I'll keep it quick. So the first one, benefits. It's self-explanatory. Building and venue revenue, that all goes to the events that the executive branch is wanting to have. There are a lot of advocacy events that they're wanting to do. I know they have the student government summit thing coming up, I think, in fall. So I'm assuming that's for that as well. Educational supplies, obviously equipment rental, same thing, all things that they need for function, that's in the code, you have to give that. Printing publicity, from what I'm aware of, President Richards loves to print things, so that kind of takes up a little bit more money, which is fine. Programming, they have a lot of different events the executive branch is wanting to put on, including, I'm sorry, let me pull it up. The mental health support events, student organizations, peer initiative, other events like that, that will all go towards that. Student government salaries, stipends, that's all dictated by the code. Speaker fees, this obviously speakers for many different organizations on campus. They're looking at 1 or 2 speakers for the bigger events, I believe. And this is like the Male Leadership Summit, accessibility, and literacy program. All these will be, speakers for these events and more. Let's see, subscriptions and periodicals. That's the same thing. I'm assuming Condley, as well as communications, their Canva Pro account, their compensating student photographer, things like that. That all go towards publicity. Temporary student salaries. That's also in the code. Travel. That is for. I'm sorry, that is for the ACC Advocacy Weekend. Those are private vehicles to get towards there, as well as the behavioral health convening of the UNC system. There's a bunch of different events that will require travel costs. Discretionary spending, from what I'm aware of, that is all for unlisted programming costs for many different initiatives, including the Richards Epps Emerging Leadership Program, the Research Scholars Program, the Distinguished Lectureship on racial equity and inclusion. Just those are unlisted costs that this fund category includes. And then events are, obviously for the main different events that the executive branch is hoping to hold that will benefit all of Carolina. So that's pretty much it.
Great. Are there any questions? Does anyone want to extend speaking privileges to our chief of staff, Keisha?
Well, I just want clarification. Does she not already have, I think, the same speaking privileges as Ashna?
We just read the student standing rules. Yeah, she should be. She should go ahead. Well, does she have a question?
I just wanted to make a statement in general. If there are any questions about the larger categories, especially, I know that there were some concerns about that in Finance Committee. More than happy to go, provide any explanations or answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Senator Richards.
Yeah, so I was very dissatisfied with the funding proposal that executive branch submitted. And I think it kind of, I was dissatisfied with it. Has executive branch submitted an updated proposal that further explains how it is they want to spend this money?
It was my understanding that if it passed Finance Committee, it passed Finance Committee.
Well, yeah, but I would like to know what you're spending this money on.
Right. So if you have any specific questions, I'm more than happy to elaborate.
I have 15.
Senator Richards, I do think that they have created an updated spreadsheet, as far as I understand. Chair Everett, did they share something with you?
Yes, that's what I was reading off of.
Okay, so he does have a document. So whatever questions, I think Chair Everett has it as well. So yeah, is Chair Senator Richards, do you have anything in response to that, or is this like
I
a legal
have
question?
about 20 questions, so it'll be Sam can go
Okay.
ahead.
Just an option, we can move into discussion and we can move on this like line by line. But if there's any like questions for the budget as a whole right now, let's do it like that if we can. But if there's a motion for discussion now, we can move into that.
Madam Speaker, could we ask a few specific questions and then enter discussion and go down line by line? Would that be possible?
I'm okay with that. Let's do that.
My first question
Sounds
for
good.
whoever can answer it would be, if discretionary spending is going to be spent on Richard Epps and things like that, why is it not just requested for that elsewhere in the budget? That would be my first question. And then secondly, as others have echoed, I would like to see a more specific breakdown of travel, amongst other things. But firstly, as far as that discretionary fund goes, why is that discretionary fund necessary when it could just be requested in other ways with specific focus on Richard Epps or other programs that clearly seem to be important? Why is that not requested in more specific ways in other places?
Sure. So I can answer that question. I can also share my screen to this sheet if you would prefer. But the discretionary spending, so when we mention programs like Richard Epps or our Research Scholars Program, the reason we have discretionary spending built in is that we currently plan and would be unable to run these programs unless we received privately funded donor money. And that is currently the process that we are going through. We are working with private donors to have these projects funded. That being said, given a number of factors, it's fully possible that we do not get the entirety of the money that we are hoping to receive from donors. The requested portions for discretionary funding are only a fraction of what we're asking donors to contribute. And so when we request things for discretionary programming costs, discretionary event costs, speaker costs, travel costs, we've stated certain programs as examples, but we are not saying right now that, for instance, if I have requested discretionary for programming costs, for instance, that it will definitely go towards one program. Is that clear? Like essentially saying that when we request, when we're going through the funding process, donors, we can't guarantee that we're going to get that money, but we don't want to completely kill these programs because of something like that.
So if I may ask a follow-up, I'm sorry, as my phone is ringing off the hook. If I may ask a follow-up. So firstly, if you were to receive all of the private donations that you would need to fund these programs, then what would be done with that discretionary budget? And follow up on that, again, I understand what you're saying, that these programs are things that you'd like to do and you want to have a slight financial cushion in case you don't receive the private contributions you're expecting to. But again, if that's the case, then why not just ask for them in other forms of the budget so we can ensure that money is being spent for those things? What would you spend the money on if you were to receive all you needed in private donations for those programs?
Sure. So for instance, the Richard Epps program, we're asking donors to contribute $50,000. So if we were to come to Senate, there is no way that, either we fully in some way fund that program, for example. Again, I want to make it clear this is one example, or we come for a discretionary funding like this. We do not anticipate receiving everything that we've asked donors to donate. So I think it is a very, very fair statement and ask to come and ask for discretionary money to cover these costs that we will not receive money for. Does that answer your question?
I still think, and this is, I apologize for two follow-ups, but I still think my question continues to be, so under that answer, if you spent every dime of the discretionary funding on the Richard Epps program, meaning if you spent all $5,000 on that, then you're still expecting that you're going to get $45,000 in private donations to cover that. But you're saying you would be able to get $45,000, but not the 50. That's where I'm struggling. Again, I just think it's a large chunk of money that's undisclosed and how it's going to be spent. And I think that's a concern for me personally and other senators. So that continues to be my question, is why don't you just request Richard Epps or these other things you want to cover in other parts of the budget? That continues to be.
Wait, can I take a stab at this?
Please.
I'm going to take a stab at this regardless. But I mean, so what I'll say is, Well, I think what Keisha has explained, and I'll try to also do my best, is that so, these programs cost much more than what Senate can provide to us. And so, we ask for the minimum of what would be required to execute a bare bones, quite honestly, lackluster program. So if we're asking, and I don't want to misquote, but let's say, for example, if we were asking 5,000 for Richard Epps, that's because we can make a bare bones, very lackluster program happen. It won't be quality, in my opinion, or effective. We can make something happen with that. And of course, we're asking for the big ask from donors. Now, in reality, the hope is that the money will come from donors, right? But we're not certain about that. So if you would rather see this money put, for example, in programming, right? If that's what you're saying, then sure. But the reality is we have several programs that we're looking to donors for. So if we earmark it specifically for Richard Epps, maybe we get donors for Richard Epps. The way that people donate to university and to programs isn't always, you can use all this money, student government or executive branch. It may be, which most times it is, specifically to a program. And so if Richard Epps gets all of its donations and our Richard Scholars Program doesn't, for example, this will allow us to move it around. But as I'm sure you all are aware, per the code and per how we do finance here, if we put it under programming specifically for a program, we have to spend it on that program. So if I put $5,000 request in for Richard Epps for $5,000, but I get everything I need for Richard Epps, but not for the Research Scholars Program, then we're without a Research Scholars Program that's funded. And I also want to respond. I think there was a question that came in. Actually, I'm not going to respond to the question in chat. I'm not sure if that's for me, but I want to make sure I'm answering your question, Sam, unless you still have something else you want to follow up on that.
Well, and I guess I understand that. I think my continual follow-up, and this is just, I hope I'm asking this in a way that's clear. If you don't receive a viable amount of funding for any of these programs, to use your words, if $5,000 would not be enough to even put on a passable program, and you guys were going to say, well, we don't have enough to do it, then what is that discretionary funding used for if those programs don't meet an undisclosed threshold of viability within your branch? If you're saying, okay, we don't have enough to do this, then what would the funding go towards at that point?
No, I didn't say we don't have enough to do it. What I said, we could execute a program and be bare bones and probably lackluster. And that doesn't mean we wouldn't do it. We would still do it. I mean, it's better to take an effort or a stab at it and do nothing. So, I mean, I'm not saying, at no point did I say or will I say that we won't do it. We're going to try our best and give every effort to make it happen. But what I'm saying is, it's very unpredictable with donors right now. And so what I'll say is that if we put this in program, which is I'm taking your question to mean like why we didn't request in a specific line item, is that when talking to others, that if we put it under programming and which the code requires us to then specify in very much detail where it be used, we can't just, there's a process in place, right? Going through a line, change all of that, but we cannot just spend it willy-nilly or what have you. And just also the idea, right, that a discretionary, that Senate wouldn't then know where the funds go or where they're used. I just want to contextualize for you all that executive branch has had a surplus this year and the year before, and this is the entire new leadership. We don't intend to have a surplus. Good stewards of the fees use every penny that we're given. And if in the case that we don't, of course, as you all may know, that reverts back to Senate for your control. We don't just have access to spend funds without a process in place, even once they're allocated to us. So we don't have a P card, we don't have any of that. There's a process, a very stringent and rigorous process in place. So I just want to kind of clarify that maybe there's an idea that, these quote unquote discretionary funds will be spent willy-nilly or without procedurally being checked or what have you. That's virtually impossible given the process we have in place through actual staff in the business office and other areas of the university that ensure we're spending, and through our own controller that ensure that we're spending the fees as they're allocated to us.
I'll yield to my other senators. Thank you.
Senator Richards.
Yeah. Well, this is a great spreadsheet. This really should have been submitted in the beginning of this process. I think that it's pretty outrageous that this proposal was just left blank, but that's kind of neither here nor there at this point. I have one specific question to start. What is a mass recycling station? And is that not just a garbage can?
Sure, so I can talk about this. So this is actually something that our civic engagement and outreach services department is working on. And so I understand your question as to, what's the difference. One of the things that they are currently working with the Orange County Department of Health on is masks can be classified as a form of bio waste. So in order to recycle them safely, especially given the current conditions in the current state of the world, we would need separate recycling bins for this project to take place. I do think, and I think our branch as a whole thinks it's a very important thing to have executed, especially as mass re-entry back onto campus will begin in the fall. Staying sustainable while also safe is extremely important to our branch.
If I could ask a brief follow-up, why is student government undertaking this if there's going to be tons of bio waste on campus for masks? Why isn't the university responsible for setting up these stations?
That is a wonderful question. This is a project that we've been working on, though. We are working with the university. I'm not sure if Claire is on right now or not. But yeah, I mean, as to why the university hasn't taken up this initiative, I unfortunately cannot give you that answer. It is a need we've found and are trying to respond to.
Chair Fiore.
Yeah, so I had a question that was addressed. Sorry, one second. So I had a question that was specifically related to the budget as a whole and your budget proposal, which was kind of addressed a little bit in Senator Richards' last question, but was not asked directly as a question. I would really appreciate it if you'd answer as a question. Specifically, why was this spreadsheet only occasionally and under certain viewing times provided to the Finance Committee and to the Senate as a whole when we provided space that was left blank in the proposals for your budget? Why were we only provided this information occasionally? And why was a more detailed explanation of what you wanted in your budget and what you wanted money appropriated for not provided to us clearly and in your budget proposal?
I'm a little unclear as to what you mean by occasionally provided. I will admit that this sheet, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, the sheet was first presented to you all at Finance Committee. Personally, I was not aware that the sheet we were working on at that time was for our internal calculations. As I'm sure you can remember, there are several tabs and it was quite messy to look at because that's what my office was working on itself. I was not under the impression that Finance Committee required a spreadsheet like this one. And I apologize if you all felt that the initial proposal was not clear. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by sometimes provided.
Yeah, let me clarify. So for the Finance Committee, we were provided this very quickly, directly before or right at our committee meeting when we required for everybody else the proposal and the explanations of the items on the proposal to be described to us before, so that we had a chance to go over the proposal before we voted on it and discussed it in our meeting. And this was not really provided to us. And then later on, in between this committee meeting or that committee meeting and this full Senate meeting, the permissions were actually removed on the spreadsheet. So I could not access this, and my fellow senators could not access this to go over this anymore. We were not able to view it. And this was kind of difficult for us to figure out a lot of what you wanted the money for, which complicated the process. So we were just wondering, first of all, why were these permissions removed and then given back to us and provided only when we wouldn't have time to go over them fully? And also, why were these not provided to us if this was a full exec branch effort? I understand that there's some a lot of you got a lot of balls in the air. I'm wondering more why some of this at least was not provided to us in the boxes on the budget proposal specifically that were just left blank for all but one of the boxes. I believe there were 4 for explanations for why the money should be appropriated.
Sure. So first I want to apologize for leaving those boxes blank on the budget proposal. That I understand is confusing. As to the actual Google Sheet, I am not entirely, so this one that you're currently looking at is a different sheet from what we used last time. I'm not sure when permissions were revoked. And I wish, and in the future, please reach out to me if something like that happens, because that was not our intention. Additionally, this sheet, again, this one specifically was also created for our internal use, so that when we came to Senate today and were asked to answer questions, as you were all asking of us now, we would have a clear reference to look at. I have no problem sharing this with you all, clearly, but this is a different sheet from what you had all seen at Finance Committee, because we essentially restarted using the totals that had come to at the end of Finance Committee and worked backwards to distribute it to our needs.
Yeah, so I think my question is instead, why did you create this for your internal purposes and then not share it with Senate until the meeting when we specifically requested it, when you had not provided this information in your budget proposal when I asked for it?
Because no one had requested it after Finance Committee.
No, I'm sorry. We requested information in our budget proposal with those boxes that were left blank. And so my question was, why were we only provided this when we specifically asked for it in the committee meeting? Why was additional information not provided to us beforehand when we specifically requested that as a section of the budget proposals?
I'm sorry, so you are saying, why did we not share the spreadsheet with you all prior to Finance Committee?
Yes, or any information about what the budget you were requesting, what that money would go towards.
Because I believe the budget proposal asked for line items, correct? Do you mean yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just not really clear on what your question is asking.
Yeah, I think Chair Everett is probably better qualified to clarify on this than I am. So I'm going to let him clarify this because I think we're having a miscommunication. So I'm sorry about that.
No. I just wanted to quickly speak on that. Yeah, the budget proposal had like the line items, but also had like, I think 10 or 8 sections of like boxes where you could like expand upon, different, the funding categories, I guess. So I just wanted to clarify that up. It had both options.
Yeah, so just to return to my question, why was none of that filled out?
Chris, did you just say that was optional? I just wanted to clarify exactly what you said. Did you say it was an option whether or not there was line item or that? I just want to make sure I hear what you said.
No, I said, sorry, I worded it wrong. They had both like up there. They had like the line items as well as the boxes. So both, like, I know the honor court filled out all of it, but I put all of them there. I based it off of the funding application, long story short, so. And all that information was like on the application where you could like expand it. I like wrote the little paragraph. So that's just like the structure of it, is all I'm saying.
Chair Fiore, did your question still stand, or would you like me to yield to other senators?
I would just like an answer. I've asked my questions. I would just appreciate an explanation for why the explanations for what the money would be used for was not filled out on this application that Chair Everett has clarified was not optional.
Well, I mean, our understanding was that it was optional, and then when we submitted our initial proposal, we didn't get any feedback back. I'm not sure if that's something that would have occurred. So I suppose it was a misstep on our end.
So when we asked for additional information directly preceding the Finance Committee meeting, and again, when we asked for just information to expand your budget, we gave you the option of expanding the information in this budget request, and you didn't provide it to us. That was probably where that was going wrong, I think.
Just to clarify,
we did ask.
Just to clarify, at what point did you all ask for additional information after the initial submission of the budget proposal?
A couple hours before the meeting when we were going over it, and we noticed that there was not much information in the application. And so we wanted to give you a chance to provide additional information before our finance committee meeting, before we voted on stuff that we didn't really have any explanation for why we should give that money.
Maybe this could help.
Yeah.
Everett, can you clarify when you received?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I can. Originally, I just received that budget from the executive branch. I know the finance committee was kind of worried because it looked kind of lacking and needed some more information. And then as the meeting came up, that's when I received like an Excel sheet with some extra information descriptions about the funding categories. But then I received a new document like as soon as this meeting started, and I just shared that with the finance committee. So I shared anything I got as soon as I got it, if that makes sense. But I didn't have any, I guess, description or on the budget at all until the day of the meeting, like 30 minutes before, I believe, around that time. And I still share that out with the committee.
I just asked who from finance asked for more information because I did not get any requests for more details.
And if I might really quickly, I'm sorry. And I don't know if this clears anything up, but I think from what I'm hearing, it might be just be a matter of like the finance committee requested more information like during the meeting. And I don't know if that was like in writing, that could be part of it. I think Chair Fiore, if you want to speak to that, but from what I'm aware of, I think the finance committee might have requested some more information throughout the meeting and was hoping that we get that before this full Senate meeting, I think.
Yeah, so the actual document that we sent out that said like, you know, what would you like money for? How much money would you like? Had these boxes, 8 to 10, I think as Chair Everett said, that specifically stated, please explain what you would like to spend this money on. And so that was us asking for this information. Initially, we noticed that these boxes were empty. We noticed that the executive branch was asking for, I think, $75,000 out of our $100,000 budget as 1/3 of the student government. And we were hoping for additional information, especially given the, I believe it was either $7,000 or $8,000 in discretionary spending, which was totally unaccounted for. And so we wanted additional information about this, which we then requested. We got this spreadsheet, which was kind of difficult to access, as a couple of our members mentioned in the finance committee meeting. And we just really wanted a little bit more information from everybody regarding any requests they made for funding, but especially for an amount so large, we really needed more information. I don't really think that my questions are really getting anywhere, so I'm just going to yield my time for my fellow senators. Thank you.
Can I quickly cut in just to talk to Anna's point a little bit? I think an important point to talk about right now is going to be consistency. And to be quite honest, last year, every time there has been anything sent to a finance committee about a funding night presentation, it's always only sent to me and then from there shared to other people via, Google Drive folder or something like that. And if I remember correctly, at last week's meeting, I don't think there was really a timeline for when the additional information was supposed to be shared. Ideally, the rule is just before a Senate meeting or before a finance meeting, and it only regards the senators who are actually going to be, I guess, voting in the meeting is what it's been in the past. So I don't know if that provides any clarification to your question, Anna, but just trying to be helpful in that case.
Thanks, Ashna. Senator Richards.
Yeah, I have, okay. If a registered student organization that was not executive branch submitted this funding proposal and did not fill out the boxes asking, what are you going to spend this money on? And only said, we want $75,000. I think rightfully they would not be given any money. That's absurd. The idea that senators can be just given information in the meeting is outrageous, in my opinion. Senators need opportunities to prepare, to ask questions. I can't just absorb an entire spreadsheet in 45 seconds before I ask a question. I need time to study. I need time to look things up. This is something I did. I kind of stole access to the spreadsheet. I copied it into a different document and I Googled mask recycling station, and I tried to figure out what was going on with that and things like that. And I came up with a bunch of questions about things that are just no longer on the budget. I'm really frustrated that the executive branch has treated us this way. And like, I think this is really outrageous. And like, I would like an answer as to like why you thought this was okay, and like why you thought that you could like just not give us any information about your budget beforehand.
Yeah, so let me step in for a minute and try to respond to some of that. First, I want to step on my comments at the beginning of this. I'm exceedingly proud of the work that my team put in on this, because let's be clear on one thing. This was a request that initially came from me about instituting this budgeting process. This is the first time we're doing it, and I expect there to be mistakes. I expect there to be need to refine this. So first, I want to commit, stand firm on my sentiments that I am exceedingly happy with their work. Second, just to answer your question, we aren't just an RSO, we're a university sponsored organization, and we are the only organization responsible with the delegated authority to represent all 18,000, 19,000 undergraduates. That makes us a bit different. I want to also establish that. Next, I'll say this, based on what I'm doing, and this is just me looking in the background for information, how I see it, we were asked for information from you all the day of the meeting. And so unless somebody can provide something from me where and this maybe it's not in my email, that came from someone else, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, I'm so sorry, I thought it was for me. I'm not sure where that might have been at, but quite honestly, I was at the finance committee meeting, and I believe you all asked for additional information at that time, and it was provided. I don't think, there could have been a miscommunication there, and even I'll apologize for that. I didn't understand when I left that space that you all still wanted more information, maybe because you all had already voted on the actual finance bill. So, it wasn't like a, pause, let's move this to another agenda. It was we voted, this is our vote. And so I didn't perceive that there was a request for additional information prior to this meeting. But I think, the reality is, this is where we are. And there were mistakes made, sure, and maybe it's a larger conversation to have, but also just thinking about this, we just passed this bill to do this a few weeks ago, right? And so, and we're testing this out. We are the first executive branch. You all are the first Senate to do this. Typically, we submit our request through the actual Senate funding portal, right? So everything is clear on what happened the time it was submitted, and there's a log to account for everything. That's typically how we do this. We haven't, necessarily did it this way. And so I think, I don't want to say that there's necessarily isn't blame to go around, but at the same time, the buck starts and stops with me for my team. And so, if you all wanted more information, when we submitted to you all that proposal, right, I think there was ample time to, fully ask for that. that request didn't come in. So I just want to make sure, I'm trying to read the comments, and I'm sorry, but I can't really read that and talk. But I'll just say that, like I said, the buck starts and stops with me. I'm going to try to answer all you all's questions from here on out as best I can on behalf of my team. But as far as the communication issue, I'll take responsibility for any lack of communication on our part and things we could did better, and what we're going to look at doing better in the future. And I will hope that Senate will work with us to do that better in the future, as this is the first time we're doing this process, and mistakes are bound to be made.
Chair Robinson.
I've just got two specific questions at the time. Both events I think seem like good ones. The alumni networking event for $2,750 and for $5,000, the racial justice, equity, social justice workshop program. Both of those seem like great ideas to me. Is that open to any undergraduate student? How would students be selected for that? As obviously 19,000 students could not attend that, and we want to ensure equity for each of our undergraduate students. How is the selection process for that going to work?
I don't think Anu is on here, just to verify. Right. Okay. Yeah. So the workshops we'll have many of them, and so the reality is, if the racial equity workshops and social justice workshops, if we see there is a need, I think we'll continue to have them. And I also do think I just saw a news hand pop up, so I do want to let her respond to this as well. But I think if there's a present need, we'll continue to have them as long as we can satisfy the entire need. Sam, so Chairman Robinson, so I know we'll be doing that. And as far as alumni networking, same thing there. I think we have a good bit of alumni that are reaching out to us, ready to work and connect with current students. And so that may not just be one venue, right? It may be several weekends or several different venues. And if we see there's too large of a need, then we may look at a process as most equitable that may be include or not limited to maybe some form of lottery system like we have for athletes, or I don't really speak for, definite, but we'll make sure that it is instituted equitably. But just giving past participation in these events, I don't think it'll be, something where we have like all 19,000 students trying to participate. I mean, just even looking at our election numbers, I don't think that many students are even in tune with what we're doing. But if that is the case, we do plan to meet the entire need of those who are interested.
That's certainly a fair answer, and that's what I wanted to verify, because I think both of those are events that, for example, I would like to attend, and I think many other students as well. So as long as there's a fair process, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Senator Nimala.
This is more of a comment, but I think it's important to be said because of how heated this got. I just wanted to say that as the finance committee, like as a part of that, where we're coming from is a place of just accountability and asking for information. We're not trying to pass blame or say that you're not doing something right. We appreciate and understand this was the first time we did this, and we're very willing to work with you. But as a person who's asked for funding before from various resources, I think it's important to just be transparent. We're just trying to make sure that the money we're allocating is going where it's supposed to. The first time I saw it, the discretionary spending was $7,000. I'm going to be very honest. I was startled when I saw that. And there was quite literally no explanation. And I believe like hours before the meeting, I got the information. And I completely understand everything, like all the communication gaps, but I just wanted to make sure that as a future precedent, we're making sure that whatever we're asking when we're asking for money, it's just transparent and we know like what the plan is. This is not a blame game or anything. We're all here to represent the students and to work with them and to, advocate for their interests. So completely understand that, but just as a future president, let's make sure that when we're just dealing with budget proposals, we're trying to be like inclusive and making sure that there's a paper trail for like where the money is going. Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying. Again, let's please keep to questions until we can move into debate, and then we can actually have discussions about this. Senator Rambani.
I would just like to make a motion to move into discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
And then I also would like to say something.
Okay, well, go ahead, Senator Rambani.
Just understanding how toxic the situation has become, I think it would be best if we could set up a special meeting at some point in the near future so that this isn't tabled for a month, just so that everything can be laid out. Because even now, and I don't want to continue discussion for another hour, I feel like I have no real grasp of what the actual budget is because we've gotten so convoluted. So that's just something I think we should consider as a Senate, and if that is friendly, of course, to the executive board.
I'm going to be honest, it's not ideal. We need to do this tonight. I think the best plan for us right now is to do the legwork. We are the senators that we have to do this. We have the spreadsheet now. We need to do our best to see what we can accomplish here. There is no special meeting. We need to do this here. So, yeah, Chair Pascagoula.
Yeah, sorry, this is going to be in response to Senator Rampani, but I do worry about how that will impact these executive branches initiatives and plans that they have for fall if we do table it. And I was wondering if I could hear from exec branch about how that would affect it, how that would affect it if we do table this.
Well, actually, I'm going to kind of edit your question and more so look at it from a finance standpoint. This is really bad for our finance committee, actually, and just the flow of how like the budgets work. I don't really know how this affects. I'm sure it affects some of their plans, but I think more so we need to focus on getting this accomplished here tonight with what we have. But I'll let executive branch talk on whatever that is going to affect there. If Lamar or Keisha wants to talk about that. They will access their funds in July, I think, if we pass it right now. So, yeah.
I just want to say really quickly, I also echo Lamar's statements of, apologies for the miscommunication. Please, in future, the senators who have worked with me, I think that I'm very, very open to sharing information. If anything like this ever happens again, please reach out to me. I have no problem sharing our budget with you. I will say on the matter of tabling it, we have adjusted our budget to match the cuts that were made after finance committee. So I don't believe we will be making any more changes to this. So in terms of refining our budget to a further degree, if there are any questions, any further questions, we can still answer those.
Yeah, sorry, I don't think I worded it properly. I meant more of like how this would impact your ability to actually like carry out these initiatives. I mean, I support, voting on this right now, but I just wanted to hear about that if any other senators had any questions on that.
Does anyone have a direct response to Chair Pasapula right now? If you do, kind of wave your hand at me. All right. Okay. Whatever's happening in the chat, Chair Fiore, if you could check on that. I don't want to speak for you. Senator Richards.
Yeah, I want to first say that I did reach out to the undergraduate student government chief of staff on Teams to ask a question about this meeting and specifically to ask if directors could be present, and I never received a response. But like more to the point, I think that we just received this information tonight. Essentially, this is like a totally different budget than I saw before. I don't feel prepared to render a decision on this budget right now, and I find it pretty hard to believe that, having a special meeting, this time next week or like late this week would be a huge imposition on executive branch. I think that it would be fine. I would like some time to go over this and not just like be scrambling in the meeting while we're like talking about voting. So I would like to support Senator Ramhani's idea.
I don't know the exact procedure on this, but can we motion for a recess so I can work out the details and make sure that that's actually possible? I don't know the procedure.
Yeah, I just moved that we take a 20-minute recess.
20 minutes. I just need.
Move that we take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Yeah, all right, we're gonna do that by unanimous consent. Is there any objections to that? All right, we're gonna get back here at 9:38. I'll be back.
See you nerds in 5 minutes.
Sorry to butt in, but if Christopher could answer his phone, that would be great.
Coming right now, sorry.
I think, yeah, he's currently on the phone.
Do we have any updates? Because it has been 5 minutes.
Hold on one second. Okay, we're back, y'all. Turn your cameras on. Okay, up front, this is the way this can look. In agreement to the people I just spoke with, including Chair Everett, we wish this could happen tonight. I strongly urge this to happen tonight, and I urge us to go through this as best we can. However, it is possible. This has to go back to finance. So what would happen was finance would have to meet likely on Friday, and we would have to call a special Senate meeting on like Tuesday. That is possible. We can do it. Senator Richards, what's your question? Or your
Is there a reason that we can't do it before committee of the whole in a normal Senate meeting?
It has to go back to finance according to the code, I believe. I think that's what we just decided.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think it's possible to be in committee of the whole. This is fun. Okay. Chair Robinson, go ahead.
I may say briefly, if there's a motion, let's vote on it. If not, let's get back to it because I've got other questions and I don't want to be here till 10 p.m. if we're not going to make a motion.
Chair Fiore, do you have anything about that?
Yes, so I think that as it stands right now, exec is less likely to get the money that they are requesting or a lot of the money that they're requesting. And I would like to give them the opportunity to, I don't know, get that. I think the likelihood of them getting more money increases when we have more time to go over this. And I would like to make a motion at this time to refer it back to Finance Committee. So that we can, do this in a better way.
All right.
Second.
I'm gonna roll call vote that if that's okay. If anyone opposes, or I guess we can do unanimous consent if you want, but I prefer a roll call. Up to you, Chair Fiore.
If you prefer roll call, that's fine.
Okay, Maya, will you take a roll call vote? Please add a column to.
1 second, I'm adding the column now.
Okay.
Can I just put it in column P, like
Yeah.
the last column, so I don't have to? Okay, perfect. Now I have to scroll over a little bit. Okay, Senator Anadura.
Yes.
And just to clarify, Elena, we're voting on to send it back to finance, correct?
Yeah, send it back to finance, and no is to continue talking about it here.
Okay, I just got a personal message to clarify. Okay. Senator Bamu.
Yes.
Okay, Senator Desai.
Yes.
Senator Everett, Chair Everett.
No.
Okay. Senator Fiore, Chair Fiore, sorry. Okay. Sorry if I'm not saying everyone's name. I'm trying to go super fast. Senator Guffey.
No.
Okay. Senator Hassios.
No.
Okay. Senator Gibbon.
No.
Okay, then it's me. No. Okay. Senator Maldekar, excuse me.
No.
Okay. Senator Nimla.
Yes.
Okay. Senator Pasapula.
No.
Okay. Speaker Powell.
No.
Senator Rampani.
Yes.
Senator Richards.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Senator Robinson.
No.
No. Okay. Suber's not here. Senator Syed.
No.
I do a point of order. I want to direct a question at the ethics chair. Are senators allowed to vote on this if they have some sort of role in exec branch? Is that a conflict of interest?
I think that would be the case if this were an SRO. I don't think so, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to vote to approve our own budget request. So I'm going to say no, it's not a conflict of interest.
Okay, I got a question about it, so I just wanted to clarify.
Am I good to continue? Am I good to continue?
Yeah, you should be good.
Okay. Senator Wilkerson?
Yes.
Senator Wilkins? Senator Wilkins? Okay, I think Senator Wilkins is no longer with us, no longer in the meeting. Okay, so based upon the votes, I do see that it has failed.
Okay, so that means we're doing this tonight.
Okay.
Okay, I say best way to approach this is to share screen. All right. Let's start with, if this is okay with everyone else, we're gonna start with the category of
I
benefits.
think we're still in discussion, technically.
Yeah, I'm consider it like this part of discussion. I'm just gonna like bring it up and like maybe I think the best approach to this, instead of jumping around, I mean we can jump around if y'all prefer. Chair Robinson.
One question immediately for Chairman Everett. Can you give us guidance on how much we are over budget and how much mandatory at this point we have to cut from this budget to make our budget tonight? I know that's putting you on the spot. I'm very sorry. I just,
2 seconds. We need to cut. Actually, give me 2 seconds. I'm so sorry.
While that's happening, actually, I am going to jump around right down to salaries and stipends, since we know that is code mandated, right? Would it be okay for all of you guys if I went ahead and just said that I want to approve that in whole by unanimous consent?
Yes, I'll make that motion if that makes it easier.
All right. Yeah, that would be great. Are there any objections?
No, I can second that if you need that. And I think we can do the same for the temp salaries too.
You said the same for temp and student salaries. All right. Is there? Okay.
Just for
I object to that. What is that? What? This is a different line item than I've ever seen before.
Someone pull up the spreadsheet. I've got to share screen.
Can someone clarify where that spreadsheet is still? Because I feel like that's a little vague.
I put it in Teams. Sorry.
Thanks, Chair Everett.
I'm sorry. Can you clarify the question you asked, Senator Richards?
I've now found it, but I have some questions about the temporary and student salaries, if we're going to talk about that now.
All right, let's just start there. Chair Robinson, do you have any questions about temporary and student salaries?
No, ma'am. I'm sorry. My hand was up for a different question.
Okay, hold that for a second. Senator Richards, do you have any questions about temporary and student salaries?
All right, so just for everybody's edification, this is $1,000 for a student photographer and $500 for a website design team. I am curious about the website design team. I'm wondering first why that can't be done in-house by executive branch, by people who like work in executive branch. And further, I would like to know, like, $500 is a very small amount of money to be paying somebody to design a website. Do you have somebody in mind for this? What's going on here?
So I'll just go with the Karthik because he's here. And I think he has speaking privileges anyway, though, since he's a part of EBO.
Yeah. Karthik, go ahead.
Thanks, all. I'll take that question. So the two parts there. First, with the photographer, I'll touch briefly the process that was made upon that number, as well as why that was the end all, as opposed to either A, contracting someone else, B, taking a look at the union's creative services, or another option. They were all explored, had meetings with several folks, had conversations with EBO members, with Bobby, as well as taking a look at all of our alternatives with Ashna. And that was the number that was we already have a photographer, the branch does, and to equitably compensate that photographer for the work that individual is and will do this coming year. That was the line item for that. The second part, the website, the fee for that, excuse me, the number there, I'll provide some context. The branch does have a website, executivebranch.unc.edu with the Helium, the WordPress. The $500 block is it's an open call proposal for, oh, sorry, just looking at the chat. Oh, sorry. The $500 is for an open call proposal for individuals for services rendered to create a more modern, visible website to increase branch visibility. And so the idea there is to leverage students, community members willing to put their services to use for that. It's not, I know there's some tricky, I had conversations about there being, tricky nuances with paying for a website. This would be for services rendered. There's a whole process proposal that would be initiated if this were to go through that we would then move forward with.
All right. Chair Robinson.
So I would like to ask this to an executive branch member to get their input. We have to cut $7,847. Have to, not want to, have to. Is this a cut y'all can stomach? Because I would like to give y'all some input into what we're going to cut. We've got to cut something. And I would think this would be a reasonable place we could make some cuts. I mean, everyone's a photographer with their iPhone. I understand the premise, and we could definitely think about this for the next financial.
I think that might be a little reaching because we are leaders who have to decide how to cut their budget. We can't ask them to cut them.
I just wanted to grant some, I'm sure that probably is a Q&A. My fault. Okay, never mind.
Can we answer that while we're on that?
I would like to.
If you would like to answer that question, you can, but
I would like to answer that question. I think that it's, Chair Robinson, that's a great question, and I appreciate you asking it. Actually, I think it merits some discussion there. When we think about branch communications, it's easy, even on our end with the executive board, with the executive branch, to jump at communications as being sort of a point as to substituting and or taking a look at our alternatives. I think in the past, where we take a look at student government, we have undermined the importance of communications and branch visibility and branding. That's something that has been and it will continue to be a top priority for me in this role. And I think it ought to be for student government as a whole. We've made great strides and we look forward to continuing doing that this year. I look forward to future or further questions regarding all communications budget, but I'm willing to defend the minimum. If you take a look comparatively with departments and comparing it to other branches and all that, willing to defend what we have because we have decreased our ask initially, and we are willing to make some concessions along the way. Thanks for the question.
I appreciate that, and I apologize, Speaker Powell, or to any other senators if that question was out of order. But I appreciate your answer, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, I don't mind if I jump in real quick. Kartik, I have a question for you. I actually can't pull up the spreadsheet because I'm sharing screen. I've got like 9 million other things pulled up. But for a web designer, when I was talking to like other people about designing the Senate website specifically, I kind of got met with office assistants are paid and they already like are paid to do so and they can take a course and they can do it. Is that similar to like something that would fit your needs? Like, could you use an office assistant instead of hiring someone? I just wanted to clarify there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think depending on if that would be an avenue where if an individual does have a certain skill set, we could leverage potentially. Yeah, so if they do have a particular skill set to support in that capacity.
Okay, and can someone clarify for me how much of that budget and how much of this 1,500 was a website?
It's $500 for the website.
Yeah, so the 500 is the website and the 1,000 for an annum for the photographer.
And also I just want to chime in briefly. I don't know if I can, Elena or Chair or ethics from ethics committee. I don't know what the procedure is, if I can make an amendment or ask for the amendment to be made. I mean, I guess it's kind of is our bill, but I'm not sure how that works.
You would have to ask the senator to make the amendment.
Okay, because I mean, I am open to at this point completely cutting discretionary and also lowering travel by 2,000.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Senator Richards?
I can just do a so moved on that one. So
I second that.
Okay, so Okay. Is there any objections to that?
This is not an objection, but a point of information. We still have a little over or $700 to cut in addition to that. So that would not be the only cut.
Thank you for sharing that. If someone would like to make a motion, or I mean, I think, am I allowed to make a motion on this? I would like to motion for 1,000 for temporary and student salaries. Are there any objections to that?
Objection. We should be paying people for their work. This is not something that I object to. There are better things that we can cut.
Oh, I was just saying the off assistants are already paid for that work.
Was there not $500 going to this? Not 1,000?
Yeah, but office assistants like are paid to do this kind of work, so they could just ask them to do it and they're already paid for it instead of hiring like a brand new person.
The website was 500, and where's this other 500 coming from?
I think the other 1,000 was for a photographer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Anyone?
We'll make it 1,000. Thanks. Withdraw
So
my
make it.
objection.
Oh, okay. So is 1,000 okay?
Yeah, Sinram Pani explained it to me.
Oh, my bad. I might have said that wrong. I'm sorry, Chair, if you were right. All right. Senator Desai.
Can I make a motion to amend?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think.
Motion to amend speaker fees by decreasing the amount $750 by taking out one speaker category and $250 in another speaker category.
Can you explain why?
Yes, on the document, on the branch budget spreadsheet under SWS, it says $500 and $500. So taking out 500 and then 250 from another speaker set. And I believe this is only for the summer session. So taking out a few speakers that could potentially come. I'm not sure as to like what they would be used for in what specific event. Somebody can clarify for that. But perhaps we could amend that down to $750 to make room for the budget.
Okay, so hold on, just clarify. Do you want to make the motion? Like, do you want me to ask for a second, or do you have a question?
No motion. Or do they need to only take it down by 250 or?
I think we're more concerned about making sure, I mean, first, yeah, we do want to make sure we hit the budget, but we also need to make sure that the things being funded are appropriate.
Okay, so then motion to amend speaker fees to subtract $750.
Okay, is there any objection to that?
There is an objection here because in the chat, I think we need to cut 2,200. If that's correct, I don't know.
Okay, there is an objection to that, so that is going to fail. All right.
Just to clarify, was the original ask to cut 7,000? I just want to make sure.
No, I was under the impression that we only had to cut $750 from the budget. And perhaps we can cut from speakers and then cut from some other place, but I'm willing to amend the motion to make different cuts.
Wait, but we just cut, I just want to clarify, make sure we're all on the same page. I think something's getting lost with all of us. We just cut 5,000, then another 2,000. I know that's what recommendation I made. So that was to 7,000. So I just want to make sure that was actually cut.
Yes, it was, I believe.
Okay, I just want to make sure okay. Thank you.
Okay, so just to make sure we're all on the same playing field, again, y'all, yes, it is a very big deal for us to make sure that we fund at the cap, but we also want to make sure we're doing it appropriately and we're funding the right things. So I just want to make that known. So let's focus on that first, if we can, but I'm also happy to keep that cognizant. Anyone who has what else we need to cut can share it, but that's not our main priority here. I'm doing my best to keep you guys in order. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who's next. So can we do the honor system? Is it Senator Richards? Okay, Senator Richards, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about subscriptions and periodicals really fast. So there's Okay, so there's stuff, for starters, you're paying, one of your elements in equipment/equipment rental is Final Cut Pro, which I believe actually should be a subscription and periodical, given that other software has fallen under there. University students get Premiere Pro for free. I think it seems pretty strange to be paying $200 to get access to a like substantively similar software to Premiere. Further, the Undergraduate Senate is already paying for a Canva Pro subscription. It seems to me that it's possible that the Undergraduate Senate and the Executive Branch can share Canva Pro. And then third, I would like to know what subscriptions I don't know what the departments are, but the SWS department, it just says will be used to purchase subscriptions to a number of mental health and higher education periodicals. I'd like to know what those subscriptions are and like why the university does not already have subscriptions to them.
Keisha or Kartik, are you guys raising your hand to respond?
I have my hand up for a different point, but I can speak to the subscriptions and periodicals. That was initially meant, or is still meant to help provide student wellness and safety department members with just informational materials, but we can work with the libraries to try and find alternatives if that makes it easier.
I mean, I'm not opposed to spending money for periodicals. I just would I want to know what they are, you know? Like I assumed there was a list somewhere or something.
I'm not sure if, so I think UNC doesn't have, or Ethan, if you're on this call and if you're able to speak to which ones. I'm also not sure if he needs speaking privileges extended or anything like that.
He does, but speaking privileges by unanimous consent. If anyone objects to Ethan having speaking privileges, please share now. Okay, Ethan, you can speak if you're here.
Yeah, sure. So I actually do have a list, but I was just talking with Bobby, and it sounds like we may be able to get those provided through other funding sources. None of them are currently provided by the university, but there may be other means through the library system that we could have access to them. So I'm willing to let that be cut from the budget.
All right, and then also on the Canva Pro and the Final Cut Pro, I'd really like some clarity on what's going on there.
Sure. I can respond to those. I concur with you, Senator Richards, about the Final Cut Pro. In our initial ask, we did have that as an alternative that the Premiere Pro can be used. I will say that the communications budget, in my opinion, is one of the most to the point direct budgets. And so I appreciate the question about the Canva Pro. I think that the executive branch with its branding and design guide would leverage and benefit greatly from an individual subscription that can be paired with our already existing account, which already has graphics and design metrics and all that fun stuff. So that point I'll touch on. Hope that answered your question.
Can I follow up? Like, why do we need a second subscription to Canva Pro from the already appropriated subscription for Senate?
No, yeah, I can clarify that. There's two separate accounts. There's an Undergraduate Senate account that has all of our prior work, and it seems like there's an Executive Branch account as well. So Maya paid for that last year for the Undergraduate Senate account. So I think the intention there was to just keep those separate, just like how other like RSOs on campus don't share Canva accounts as well.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Elena. I can't speak on the Senate end, but that was helpful to know.
All right, cool. That seems fine. So I'd like to move to reduce the subscriptions budget by $600 and the equipment budget by $199.99.
Just to clarify, Senator Richards, is the 600 you're cutting from subscriptions? Is that the periodic?
That is the subscriptions that Director Phillips said he can get with other funding.
Okay. Are there any objections to the subscriptions being cut by $600? Okay. And then what was the other one you mentioned?
I want to cut equipment by $199.99.
Can you give us a little more clarity there?
About for the Final Cut Pro. I think that it's perfectly fine to use Premiere Pro.
Okay. Can someone give me the number on that if you don't mind?
$199.99, so I can do the math.
Okay, thank you. Are there any objections to cutting equipment rental for now by the Final Cut Pro amount. Okay, when I get that number, I will enter that in. Okay, are there any more questions? If you guys don't mind, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen for them. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Okay, Keisha, do you wanna go next real quick?
Yeah, sure. I just had 2 points. One, I think the speaker fees, just to be clear, everything we're asking for now, we are asking for the speaker fees at the rate that we're asking them for at this moment, because a lot of the speakers or the quality and caliber of the speaker that we intend to have at these events need to be booked in advance of months. So that's the reason why we're not holding off until fall. These are not intended to just be summer session speakers, if that's clear. My other point was that in terms of, and again, Elena, if this is not something you want me to say, I don't have to say it, but places to cut office supplies might be one you may want to look at. I definitely think that we may have over asked a little bit, since obviously all of these office supplies oftentimes will be shared with the Senate and GPSG. So just a suggestion. I know that it's currently a little over $200.
Thank you for that. Senator Rampani.
I just wanted to clarify, we've cut all we needed to cut, right? Like we've cut 7,500 between travel, between subscription periodicals, discretionary, and equipment. So we're under budget now.
Here, Everett, is this?
From what I have, I am pretty certain I have $99,000 and $457. So I could prove everything else to be completely fine. Okay.
So the answer to your question, Senator Rampani, is yes, but it is still very pertinent that we're keeping
Oh, of
with
course,
our
of course. I just
values
wanted to
and-
make sure I understood and made sure we were good.
Yeah, right. Senator or Chair
Speaker, am I
Robinson.
able to, again, I want to make sure I'm within the rules and within the ethics. Because I've just gotten to see this financial document, I have questions for executive branch members. Am I allowed to address questions to them?
Yes, you can ask questions. Just make sure they're,
Oh, for sure.
about it.
Well, right here, I'm looking at now that, and I appreciate President Richards. I don't know, I know you're still on the call. I appreciate the willingness to work with us cutting discretionary. I know that was a concern. I appreciate the concession there. That's really that's taken in good faith for sure. Now it appears that the next largest request is, besides speaker fees, would be educational supplies. I'm noticing in the budget for the first time the 45 GRE books, GMAT, MCAT, and LSAT for each of those books. Are those, can someone describe to me the process for how those are going to be dispersed and what that's for? Because I don't think it's a bad idea. I just would like a little more information before we allocate that money.
If anyone's directly responding, just go ahead and unmute.
Sure. I'm not sure if Phoebe is on the call currently.
Maybe if you're on the call, let me know and then we can extend.
I don't think she is back.
She is. Lamar, do you want to talk about it, or I can
I was
do?
about to talk about, yeah, I don't think she's on the call, just making sure. Yeah, she isn't. So there are two processes in place. We're still trying to figure out. One is going to be a simple rental process for students can come in and rent test prep materials. And as you all may be aware, so I did, Elaine Westbrooks and I, who is over the university library system, we discussed this in depth right when I was sworn in, as well as Phoebe was in those conversations. The guidance from the university, which is set by the board of trustees on what can be purchased and can't be purchased through our university library system. It has very rigorous and stringent rules in place on what qualifies as quote unquote test prep and how that should be purchased. And that's specifically from the provost or the Office of Undergraduate Research or the Center for Student Success specifically, or the Office of Undergraduate Education. And so it's a really big gray area is what I'm saying on the university side. So just in case anyone's wondering why the university isn't footing the bill for some of this. And the second thing is there's also a pre-professional program coming out of Phoebe's department, which specifically targets underrepresented and marginalized students who are interested in, professional programs, whether it be medical school, law school, dental school, pharmacy, and et cetera, and give them access to professional development and test prep. So there'll be two sources. One is the rental, and the other is the programming. And I do think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the original ask for this is somewhere around about, I think, $20,000 total. And this is what we're coming to you all having already exhausted all our efforts specifically for donors for this. So we were successful in securing some funding specifically for this program from some folks. So I'm happy to report that. And this is what we need to actually execute the remainder of the program.
Thank you. It's a wonderful explanation. Thank you very much.
Senator Richards.
Yeah, on the subject, like I can say from personal experience that the UNC Library has a pretty wide selection of both in-person, like physical and virtual, at least LSAT prep books. I mean, there's like probably 20 or 30 of them that you can access. I don't know. This is not like the craziest thing in the world, but I am a little bit confused as to why, we're not just directing people to the library resources that exist. They're there. I mean,
right. So just to kind of follow up on that, thank you for that question, and also for what Chairman Robinson was saying. So the idea is that for the folks that are going to be in this pre-professional program, they're going to have a set curriculum that move together as a cohort. So everyone who's enrolled in this program, who applies for this program, will have programming tailored specifically if they're looking for law school, or so for LSAT, or if they're looking for medical school, MCAT, and so they'll need those materials, the same materials, to move together and do that program. And so the idea is that we don't want to deprive then the rest of the university who is in this program from the resources of the university library, which is very limited, by the way. And I have it in writing and also in request from the university library system that those are the quickest books to go, the very few that they do have. So just kind of want to differentiate here between the request, which is more so specifically for that program.
just a quick follow-up. Is this a student government program that is being set up, or is this some other group that's doing this?
Yeah,
I'm a little confused.
It's a student government program, yes.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
Kartik.
Apologies.
Chair Everett.
Yeah, I'd like to motion to accept the benefits amount of $1,500.
Are there any objections to that? Okay.
And I would move to make the building venue rental at $2,950.
Are there any objections to that? Chair Robinson.
I'll motion to accept the educational supplies at $7,000.
Are there any objections to that? Okay.
And I will make another motion for printing and publicity at $1,500. That seems entirely reasonable.
Are there any objections? Senator Desai.
Motion to accept speaker fees at $10,000.
Are there any objections?
Objection.
I object.
Okay.
Can I speak on my objection?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so I would really, so you mentioned that I really have a question more than, but you've mentioned that due to the nature of who you'd like to speak, you have to reach out to them months in advance, which is why you are requesting this, funding now as opposed to in later appropriations meetings. And I was just curious if you now had any idea of who you would have to speak, since you say that you have people in mind and you have them in mind and you have to get them done months in advance. Who are these people that are coming to speak? Any names would be great.
Similar response to as what we gave in Finance Committee. We know the level of which we want the speakers to come. We do not have names for you. Lamar, if you want to say.
I mean, no,
what
I mean, you're exactly right. I think what you were describing is exactly right. I mean, in order to initiate the process and reaching out to them, we need to know how much funding we have. So, I mean, I don't know if you were asking something differently, but I mean, the months in advance process where we're trying to say would commence upon receiving the funding. So I don't know if you meant, do we have the names at this current moment in time, or were you saying we want to start that process once we know how much funding we received? I'm sorry, I want to clarify that.
Yeah, I was asking if you had names in particular, but I see that it's kind of a chicken and egg situation now. Thanks.
Senator Rampani.
I don't want to beat a dead horse. Can you clarify what you mean by like level of speaker? That just seems kind of vague to me. I mean, I'm hearing that y'all don't have any, from what you just said, you have no idea who you're going to ask to speak at these events, right? So if you could just clarify.
Yes, I'll clarify. So for example, for the Black Male Leadership Summit we're planning for spring, or for the Social Justice Conference, we know that we want someone who's experienced in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We know we want someone who's experienced in the area of Black male retention in higher education, especially at large public universities and not at private schools, for example. So we know what the qualifications we want them to have, right? So that means I'm going to look for someone to speak at the Black Male Leadership Summit who has experience in cultivating professional development and successful networks among Black males in higher education. So like, to clarify, we know what we're looking for in the background of a speaker. We haven't necessarily identified the exact folks yet, because it would require us to know what we're bringing to the table to secure them.
If you don't mind if I jump in, again, if this is in the spreadsheet, I apologize because I don't have it pulled up because I can't. Can you clarify the average amount of how much it costs to hire these speakers and how many you plan to have? I just want to make sure that like this would even be like a reliable estimate of like what you're looking for.
Yeah, so yeah, I think as we shared in one of the things that they shared in Finance Committee, with this amount, right, isn't covering like anywhere near the actual total amount. For example, I just took a request to the Provost's office for a speaker for the lectureship on distinguished lectureship on racial equity and inclusion. I'm waiting for their response. You know, to secure that speaker, we're looking at around about $25,000 to $30,000 for one person. You know, it just depends on the field. And then you're talking about, so this amount I will say is definitely lower end, right? This is not covering anywhere near all that we would need. But I think that it's a starting point for us to secure. So we have like smaller workshops to larger events. I think the larger events we're going to try to use outside donors for, but I also want to be clear that, you know, you're talking about things like social justice conferences, racial equity workshops, the areas of DEI where people are traditionally underpaid, and we don't want to be exploiting or tokenizing individuals, asking them to come here for free. So oftentimes, in order to initiate those conversations, we need to know exactly what we may be able to bring to the table, even if it's a small workshop, for example.
Absolutely, Lamar. I don't think that's what we're finding. I think what we're looking for is names. So like, I think what a lot of our senators have in mind is maybe like when you have names and like actual numbers on like how much these people are valued at, and we don't want them to come for free. I think it's more so just having the plan of like, this is who we're looking for, and then applying for that. Not more like we want them to come for free. We just want to like know their exact numbers and who they are. I just wanted to clarify that in case we weren't being clear.
So, right. So let me just kind of go through how the speaking contract works. So negotiating a speaking contract, since I did that. Typically how it works is you can kind of negotiate an amount. So for example, if someone wants Lamar Richardson to speak at such and such university or such and such event, right? They, you know, I may have a set amount, or it also often depends on what's happening. Do I have rights to reproduce the recording from my event? What's the size of the audience? Is it being marketed? Is it going to be a free event, or is it going to be ticketed? There's a lot of things in place that would then depend on how much we can offer that person to come. And oftentimes it's a back and forth process that begins with the first thing of what we're able to bring to the table. So I think either I'm misunderstanding, or what I'm trying to really get across is that we needed to understand where we would come out of this from tonight in order to best enter those conversations, because otherwise we have no type of leverage. Otherwise they would tell us, oh, we need X amount of dollars, and we would not be able to really fill that conversation. That makes any sense, unless I'm misunderstanding everything everybody's saying. I really do believe it's a chicken and egg situation.
Okay. Thank you for that, Lamar. Senator, or is Chair Everett next? Sorry, I can't.
Yeah, I can go.
That's fine.
I wanted to make a motion to accept the event for the amount of $8,500.
I would like to, I'm so sorry. I would like to object to that. I want to talk about the events too.
All right, that's okay.
Sorry, dude.
Sorry, I guess let's focus on speaker fees since we're there. If everyone, Senator Richards, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, can you just like say that you have like a strong idea in mind of like the type of speaker you want for each event? And like the line item you're asking for is in line with the like type of speaker that you're asking for?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, Chair Robinson.
Based on that information, I understand the chicken and egg situation. I appreciate that explanation. I'm willing to make a motion to accept the speaker fees in the amount of $10,000. That seems.
I'll second that.
Is there any objections?
And if I may make a suggestion, Madam Speaker, would it be possible for us to work to programming next, just so we can hit events as the last thing and work? We probably should have gone chronologically from the start, but I know everybody gets excited. So no problem. I'm not being critical, just merely.
Does anyone have any questions about programming? Chair Everett.
Can I do the motion? Is that okay?
Is there any objections to?
Sorry, we're looking for questions about programming. I was looking at the spreadsheet.
Yeah, we're at programming right now.
Yeah, I have a question. So this was in the previous budget and I like lost it. I didn't realize it was still in here. But you've budgeted $800 for the development of an algorithm and the upkeep of a web-based application aimed at connecting UNC students and establishing a peer networking service for current blah, blah, blah. What is this? Why is it not going to the App Lab where you can get it like I'm pretty sure you can get it for free there. Who are you paying $800 to develop an app? I have a lot of questions, but can I get some more clarity on what this is, what's going on here?
It's kind of similar to the previous, the web development thing. We just want to pay someone for their time. And developing and upkeeping an app like this one would be quite a project. I think we just really believe in paying people for their time.
Okay, but I agree you should pay people for their time, but like the word algorithm is very vague. What is this? What are you trying to do with this thing?
It's a web-based application. I mean, honestly, the description is as it reads. AIM is just to connect students on UNC's campus, especially as we deal with re-entry.
Okay, if I got this as an assignment in a computer science class, I would drop the class. Like this is the most vague thing that I've ever seen as a spec for a project. And I would really like to know like what this is supposed to do. Like, what does this look like? Are we like creating Tinder for student networking? Like what is this?
Well, that's something we'd like to work on with a student on this project. The aim is there, the details are not. We know.
Would the CLSE director know more about this? Like, I'm really confused by this line item.
Well, the CLSE director wrote this description, so I'm sure they would be able to go more in depth if needed.
They here?
Can anyone answer the question on behalf of him or her?
I'm trying to do my best. If this isn't enough, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. I apologize, but like this is my area of study, and like this is not anything.
I have a motion, Madam Speaker.
So do I.
Chair Robinson, what's your motion?
My motion is to approve programming minus $800.
I'll second that. $64.50, I believe.
Are there any objections? Okay. I was told $64.50. Can someone confirm that? Is that a yes, everyone? Okay. Okay, moving down to events. Chair Robinson.
On the understanding that is open to students via lottery and open to all students who want to attend, or at least a chance to, I motion for approval.
Are there any objections?
Is it, in fact, have we established that it's available to everybody or equally available?
That is what President Richards said a few moments ago.
No objection.
No objections? Okay. All right, can someone get me a final total of all this?
Oh, you got it, Chair Everett?
Sorry, I had a final total for all of the budgets. I don't have this one specifically.
Can we confirm this is under budget, Chair Everett?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Is there a motion on this bill?
I move to accept this bill as amended.
Second.
All right, let's go roll call. Maya, can you handle the roll call?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, give me 1 second. Senator Anadura,
Yes.
Senator Bamu,
Yes.
Senator Desai,
Yes.
Senator Everett, Chair Everett,
Yes.
Chair Fiore,
Yes.
Senator Guffey,
Yes.
Senator Hassios,
Yes.
Senator Gibbon,
Yes.
Senator Maldekar,
Yes.
sorry, and then Senator Nimla,
Yes.
Senator Pasapula,
Yes.
Speaker Powell,
Yes.
okay, Senator Rampani,
Yes.
Senator Richards,
Yes.
Senator Robinson,
Yes.
super not here, Senator Syed,
Yes.
Senator Wilkerson,
Yes.
and Senator Wilkins, but I believe he has already exited. And with a total of 8, this does pass.
Fantastic. Okay, we're gonna move on to USR 103-021. I'm gonna share screen. Senator Richards, if you wanna go ahead and present.